The audio,
respond and help my community
we can
if disaster
hear
ever strikes.
if
I'm
the
extremely proud that I get to serve my community. And that first step I took by
let's
joining the Army
see if we
National
can
Guard
hear
has made all the difference
Pastor
in my life.
Johnson.
Talk to your local recruiter or visit
I should be up there.
nationalguard.com to find out what's
Okay, refreshing your page.
available to you in the Army.
Good morning. You ready to test me?
Not yet. Not quite.
Sponsored by the Illinois Army National Guard, aired by the Illinois Broadcasters Association at this station.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one.
You
and
know, this
yourself.
guy who they're really
Brought to you
pushing
by
for
AARP
speaker,
and the Ad
Vicky,
Council.
he said that he was David Duke without the baggage. But
Oh my.
but the
Just a
media
little
are not
heads up
saying
before something
anything
bad
about that.
happens.
Corporate media. I said, now how am I
She
supposed
said
to?
that, and she said that in public?
Oh, girl, that was yes.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the
Well,
Absolutely.
maybe they don't know who David Dukes is.
Yeah, they do.
And a few healthy
Former
changes,
Grand
like
Wizard of the
managing
Clan.
stress,
Oh,
being
yeah.
active, stopping
Mhm.
smoking,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
can
They
stop
know who he
prediabetes
is. They know
before it
exactly
leads
who
to
he
type
is.
2 diabetes. It's
And
easy
I'm
to
going
learn
to
your
let
risk.
everybody
Take
know
a
who he
1-minute
is, too.
test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
I'm going to let everybody know who Steve Scalise is. How about that?
As who used to say, snatch the cover.
doihaveprediabetes.org today.
What is
You
this?
got to snatch the cover.
I'm considering, and, you know, and he is the majority whip.
Hi, Ms. Jackson. Are you
Yes.
live on your Facebook yet?
Yeah, I do.
Megan Financial, an independent retirement and financial services
Yeah.
firm.
You don't see it?
I don't. I see it. I'm just like, it's not playing on my end. But I'm just going to keep refreshing and trying.
Okay, keep refreshing and trying
Investments,
because
pensions, 401ks.
everybody, can you hear? Let me
We
know
make
if you
sure
can
that
hear.
you
Let me know if
understand
you
it.
can
Give us a
hear.
call
Let
at
me know if you can hear.
708-444.
I changed the
1090.
settings so that you
We're
could hear
Megan
her.
Financial, and we're your partners in a happier retirement. Or visit us at MEG.
We have about 2 minutes.
Okay, no, my question is, can you hear? Can you hear? You gotta have the audio.
It's not playing on my end.
For informational use only. The views are not necessarily those of their advisors.
Oh, okay, they're saying they can hear me on StreamYard. They can hear me on a
Okay.
different platform. Now, can you hear me?
Investment decisions should be based upon an individual's own goal, time horizon. Consult your
It is not playing for some reason on my end.
After last week, no thanks.
Can you refresh?
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas.
I have been. It's just when I hit play, like nothing happens, and then I can't like full it or anything
No,
like that.
honey, talk to me quickly.
EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms. EPI.com.
Okay, I just refreshed.
Finding great candidates to hire.
Okay, thank you. We have
No worries.
30 seconds.
Okay, no, can you
but
hear?
Not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and
Can you hear
invites
me?
qualified candidates
Can you
to
hear me
apply to
on
your job.
Facebook?
So
They can hear
while
me
other
on
companies
Facebook
might deliver
and
a lot of
YouTube.
hay, ZipRecruiter finds
But
you,
you
I
cannot.
can't.
in the haystack.
Well, I like Facebook isn't just working. It's just not working on my phone right now.
Okay, I need you to, can you go on the computer and find out?
I need a login, and I don't have a Facebook login.
/free.
We're about to go live, so I will get you live, and then I'll check on that.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. That's like that's a biggie. I don't hear anything.
1 second.
And please put me up. Please mute me when she's speaking.
We can change the world.
Will do. And I'll send
Thank
you a
you.
text when you're muted.
No problem.
We can change the
Sorry, they changed the layout here for some reason.
world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Getting a little feedback, getting that echo. Great. We worked that out. Thank you. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. What a wonderful day it is to be alive on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Meet Robert and oh my goodness, who else is over there this morning? Thus far, everybody like and share. Donnie D, how you doing? Paula, how you doing? How you doing, girly? And Barbara Bacon from Oak Park and Woods. Doris Woods, where are you from? Nicole, how you doing, everybody? Please like and share. Of course, we're going to be talking about this historic event that happened yesterday for the first time in the history of the Republic. A Speaker of the House was removed. The Speaker of the House, not a, but the Speaker of the House was removed. Kevin McCarthy the motion was filed for him to be vacated from his seat. And guess what? It went through. And it's interesting how they're framing it. They're saying 3% of the Republican caucus, but 100% of the Democrats. No, he could not hold on to his caucus. And that is why he is out of a job today. That is why the co-equal of the president, we don't have one now. We have a president pro tempore of the Senate, but we do not have the head of the legislative branch of the government. We have three branches of government: executive, judicial, legislative. And we don't have a head of the legislative branch. Within 45 days, we could become insolvent. How is that going to work? Are Republicans going to be able to pull it together so that we can have a Speaker of the House and conduct business? We have a budget to get together. What happened here? Well, the rules were changed. Kevin McCarthy was so desperate to become the Speaker. He said, okay, all it takes is one person. If one person calls for me to be vacated, then it is on. And guess what? Now many people in the caucus are saying really it should be 50% of the caucus, because more than 95% of his caucus sided with him. They didn't want him to be vacated. And quite frankly, because he did not show himself to be trustworthy, not just to those 8 people in his caucus, but with the Democrats. After he cut the deal with the Democrats, to avert the government shutdown, then he started saying unkind, disparaging things about the Democrats. The Democrats said, we can't trust you. What is going on here? There's something called the gentlemen's and gentle ladies agreements, and he broke them. So here we are. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and who are in contention for the speakership. Not the least of whom, first among equals, is Stephen Scalise. You remember him in 2017. He was shot at the congressional baseball game practice, and thankfully he survived. And he is in a cancer battle right now, and he is actually thriving, thank God, through that. But what's interesting about him, he comes from Louisiana. He is the House Majority Whip. He's in leadership. He has said that he's the David Duke without the baggage. Are you serious? You remember David Duke, the former head of the KKK. You're the David Duke without the baggage, and that's supposed to be acceptable to me? I'm a Democrat, but I'm an American before any of all of that, and I'm God's child before all of that. That's unacceptable to me. And the corporate media are not mentioning that he called himself the David Duke without baggage. What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-9278. You ought to be outraged about it. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, yellow, or red. You ought to be outraged by that someone would associate with that kind of filth. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get through some of these headlines before we get the good news. The House Speaker was ousted for the first time in the history of our country. 8 Republicans, led by Florida's Matt Gaetz, and 208 Democrats voted to remove Kevin McCarthy, Republican from California, yesterday. Far-right Republicans were angry that McCarthy passed legislation with Democrats to avert a government shutdown last week, but they also believe Matt Gaetz has charged him with cutting a secret deal with President Biden to fund Ukraine. Let's talk about it today. Call me at 773-763-9278. We're going to have a whole lot of guests. We're going to be cycling in and out, giving us their thoughts. Indeed, we're going to have Congresswoman Delia Ramirez telling us what it was like, what happened there. You know, I love Delia Ramirez. She is the first Hispanic elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from the Midwest. She's made history herself. Donald Trump was ordered to stop talking about court staff in his fraud trial. A judge issued a gag order yesterday in the civil trial that has $250 million on the line for the former president. And so we will see where that goes. Will he stop speaking? I don't know. Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty to 3 felony charges yesterday, making 2 false statements in 2018 he's been accused of when he completed paperwork to purchase a gun. He is also charged with unlawfully possessing the gun. It opened a new phase in the high-profile prosecution of President Biden's son. We will see where that is going to go. More than 75,000 Kaiser Permanente workers plan to go on strike today. It's a 3-day action that would be the largest healthcare strike in American history. The company has said hospitals and emergency departments would remain open. Why are they striking? They're striking about wages. They need their wages raised. Outsourcing, staffing shortages, which healthcare workers say increase their workloads and jeopardize patient safety. Everybody, please let us support these healthcare workers. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 81 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 65 degrees. It will be cloudy. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 3, the Blue Jays 1, the Diamondbacks 6, the Brewers 3, and the Phillies 4, the Marlins 1. We are in playoff season. Who is going to win the World Series? I don't know, but it's exciting. I love this time of year. And of course, the Marlins will be facing off against the Phillies later on today. The Diamondbacks will be meeting the Brewers once again, the Blue Jays and the Twins once again, and the Rangers and the Rays will be facing off. But we have got Pastor Vicki Johnson. I know I gave you a whole lot today talking about this man who's said,
you
girl, wait a minute. Come on now. Wait a minute. You a David Duke without the baggage? What? That is insulting. And it's insulting that the corporate media won't talk about it. Yeah, no, but every action merits an equal and opposite reaction. The more we move forward, the more people try to pull us back. I get it. That having been said, corporate media have a responsibility to call him out on that. Number one, to report it and ask him, okay, so what did you mean by that? Where do you stand on that today?
Right. Mm-hmm.
As a Black person, that is profoundly insulting to me. That it is acceptable for you to say something like that. Oh, no. Call me at 773-763-9278. And this goes beyond being a Republican or a Democrat. This goes to your Americanness. What works for you? Because if he's the Speaker of the House, he will be the Speaker of the House. You can make him a Republican if you want to. That's what he is. But he will be the head of the legislative branch of government. Do you want the head of the legislative branch of government in the United States, the co-equal of the president, to say that he is the David Duke without baggage? I think not. Call me at 773-763-9278. You need to let Republicans know, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, that he is unacceptable. Pastor Vicki Johnson, how you doing?
I am doing well and glad to be here this morning.
All right now. I love it. Well, what is the good news?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all of your morning stars and friends. There is good news. When I was a little girl, my mother always thought someone was going to kidnap me. And I laugh about it now. You see, they had shown rich and famous kids on the television being kidnapped for large ransoms. That should have calmed my mother's mind, since we were not people of means, but it didn't. So she taught me what to do if anyone ever tried to kidnap me. To scream to the top of my lungs. That was my survival tactic. And I put in parentheses that I never got to use. I am a swimmer. When learning how to swim at the Don Nash Park District here in Chicago, they taught us that if we were ever in distress and if you were in the shallow water, just stand up. If you were in the deep water, just roll over on your back to recover. This is water survival tactics. In life, we find ourselves in distressing situations, and if we don't have survival tactics, they can very well take us under. Although I was never kidnapped, I'm glad my mother cared enough for me to equip me for danger. I've caught water while swimming, but in my panicking moment, I remembered to roll over on my back until I could get myself together. What is your survival tactic? What are you equipped with to protect you from danger? I'm sure you have some. October is Mental Health Awareness Month. If you have a toothache, you go to a dentist. If you have chest pains, you go to the cardiologist. If you have cataracts or blurred vision, you go to the ophthalmologist. When you feel out of touch with God, you go to church, to a religious facility, or a pastor. But when you are stressed, and many times you either play it off or try to pray it off, why not go to a therapist or a counselor? Stress kills when it doesn't have to. What can you do in stressing situations? You can go for a walk. You can breathe. I don't mean just breathe like you normally breathe, but practice some yoga breathing. You can develop routines that work for you. Put down your phone. Give your brain a break. Know what pushes your button and navigate accordingly. Seek help. Seek a therapist. Proverbs, the 4th chapter and the 7th verse says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. Understand this. Take care of yourself. Get and use tactics that work. And if you are stressed out, get help. It's there for you. If you can do this, and I believe that you can, then to me, that's good news.
I love that. I love that. You know, we break a leg, run to the emergency room. You break your psyche
Yes.
or your spirit. Whoa, I'm just fine. I'm making it. You know, I'm a strong Black woman. We need to stop that. I'm a strong woman. I don't care what color you are. We need to stop that because we're walking around and we are hurting and we're spreading our hurt over everybody we love. Oh, yeah. I mean, I see it all the time, you know, because our anger is really our depression. But we're hurting people. I mean, all the time. And I think, you know, I'm glad that you as a pastor are saying, wait a minute, you need to get some help, not just help, but support. You need help and you need support. So thank you for that. How can we worship with you on Sunday? Oh, I mean, that resonates with me today.
You can worship with me at Lebanon Lutheran Church, 13100 South Manistee at 9 o'clock a.m. or at St. Thomas Lutheran Church, 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard in Chicago at 11:30 a.m. for an hour of power. Both services can be viewed on Facebook.
I love it. Sending you so much love. Pastor, sending you so much love. Oh boy, get some help, everybody, and get the support that you need. Get the help, get the support.
Yeah.
They're two different concepts. Get diagnosed and then get the support.
Yes.
Because there's a community out here for us. And I thank you for that this morning. We need that. And we really need that. We need to hear that from our pastors. We really do. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Oh my goodness. I love you, Pastor Vicki Johnson. And I love you,
Love
Dr.
you,
Shanita.
Santita.
Thank you. I know Santita's that's very hard for you to wrap your mind around, but that's all right. Hey, everybody. We got Dr. Shanita Knighton, infection preventionist. How you doing, Dr. Knighton?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So what's on your mind today?
Well, Santita, I think one of the things to probably discuss is I know we are getting ready to be embarking upon, I say, voting season. I know that we have a lot going on right now in October, but I'm just moving ahead to just even thinking about that. And really just thinking about commonly touched items just in general. So what made me think about voting was making me think about, like, let's just say even October, just thinking about candy because there'll be the exchange of that with kids. Kids sticking their hands in buckets. We know kids have, there's autumn leaves and there's fall sneezes. So there'll be plenty of runny noses running around. And unfortunately, when you have, improper hand hygiene or kids that don't practice hand hygiene, you end up with a lot of kids that may be putting those germs in those baskets or those buckets with candy. The other piece of it is bringing it up because I'm just talking about commonly touched items. Everything that I'm related to is going to be the hands. So even if we're talking about voting and we're talking about passing off IDs, we're talking about passing off ink pens or using commonly used ink pens, we have to remember that somebody may have coughed, sneezed, or touched a contaminated surface, and therefore we should be practicing hand hygiene after we touch commonly used items. When you are going to be in, let's say, a fast food line, think about the fact that they've touched many, many cards before they touched your card, and they'll be passing your card back to you. Remember not to put your hands right directly on your French fries without washing your hands. So everything does come down to what are you doing with your hands. People may downplay hand hygiene and think that it's simple, but it's not simple because less than 20% of people that clean their hands do it correctly.
Oh, wow.
And so with that, yes, less than 20%. The other piece is when you are washing your hands, what are you washing your hands with? When is it appropriate to wash your hands versus when to use hand sanitizer? If your hands are visibly dirty and they're soiled and you have something on there, the best form of hand cleaning is going to be washing your hands and making sure that you're doing it for 20 to 25 seconds. If you may have invisible germs, meaning there's something that you can't see on your hands, but you know you touched that contaminated pen or you had, someone touch your ID or your credit card, then that's when hand sanitizer is appropriate. I always tell people before, I used to say, make sure that you use the ones that are available in public. Well, now that they're no longer providing them in public, it's important for you to have your own personal supply of hand sanitizer to make sure that you are using it. In restaurants, they are now going back to the use of regular menus. We know that already. Menus are plastic. They do not wipe the menus down. And hundreds of people will use those menus before you get that menu. After you get the menu, it's important that you clean your hands because you've been scrolling through that menu and it has germs on it. So while these, again, are small tidbits, I'm telling you to consciously think about what you're doing with your hands because that is going to be the one barrier between you being well or you potentially being ill.
Everybody, please, these are things that you don't really think about because, we just mindlessly go on about our lives. I'm not mad at anybody, but you can't be mindless. We never should have been, but we really can't do that these days. Please wash your hands. Keep that hand sanitizer handy. I'm going to get Congressman Jonathan Jackson on. Just got a text from him. He's available. We're going to have Congresswoman Delia Ramirez on as well. What happened at the U.S. House of Representatives? What led to that moment yesterday where history was made for the first time in the history of the Republic? The Speaker of the House was kicked out of his position. Wow. I'm back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute.
This is Ron Whittingham, and I'm co-owner of Megan Financial, an independent retirement and financial services firm here in Chicago. We've built our business on playing the long game, teaching financial literacy to our clients to prepare them for a great future and a dignified retirement. Investments, pensions, 401ks, they're all pretty complicated. We make sure that you understand it all. Give us a call at 708-444-1090. We're Megan Financial, and we're your partners in a happy retirement. Or visit us at megent.com.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member of FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor. Securities under separate ownership from any other named entity.
Shanita.
Depicted in this broadcast are general in nature and provided for informational use only. The views are not necessary.
Yes, I'm here.
I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm
trying
to. I have to post my.
However, we make no representation as to its
I'm just doing a whole lot of stuff.
Investing involves risk, including
And
loss of
then my
principal
brother
investment.
sent. Thank you. My brother sent me a text saying that he could come on. So
Regarding your unique situation.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. See how
Yes, we do. Let me patch him through real quick. 1 second.
for a clean energy future at ComEd.com/public schools.
Sometimes life is one.
We also have Congressman Jackson on. We also have Attorney Connolly, Dwight McKee, and Dr. Gibbs.
Okay,
Always
thank
be
you so
prepared
much
for life's challenges.
Bring the Congressman
At
on. I'm
Private
so glad.
Healthcare, we
Congressman
provide the peace
Jackson.
of mind you deserve. Private healthcare is private health insurance for ages 65
Okay.
and under with medical,
Congressman
dental,
Jackson, can
vision,
you hear me?
and even prescription coverage.
Hi, Santita. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
That's 800-581-9073.
Excellent. How about yourself?
Doing great. Sending you so much love today. Thank you for being on with
Join
us.
Joan Esposito and Santita Jackson for a live
Love you.
in-person Union
I love
Strong
you
panel
very
on
much.
Wednesday,
You know
October
that.
18th, 3 to 5 p.m. at the beautiful
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Union Hall.
I
in
love
Oak
you. You
Brook.
got to tell us
Union
what
leaders
happened.
and influencers will be
I'm
discussing
glad you're
the
with
dollars and
us. I have
cents of
got Dr.
unions and the
Gibbs and
plans
Dwight
to build
and
a
Aaron
strong
Connolly.
workforce for the
But I
future.
need you to set the
Tickets are
table
free,
for
but
us. We need to know
registration
what
is
happened.
required at heartlandsignal.com.
Dr. Gibbs?
This live
Sure.
event is proudly sponsored.
Yes, good morning, Santita.
Hi, I've got Congressman Jackson
Hello,
on
Dr.
with us.
Gibbs.
Local 11, Smart Local
Oh, good.
365, Megan's Financial, and
Oh,
Cisco.
Dr. Gibbs, I'm sorry, I was stepping
Tired
all
of
over
all
you.
those
If
talking
Congressman
heads down
Jackson
the
was saying
dial
hello
who
to
think
you.
they're always right?
People need to.
Hello, Congressman Jackson. It's good to be on with you.
WCPT.
Great to be on with you, Dr.
Where
Gibbs.
facts matter.
Dwight
Quite
McKee
frankly,
and Aaron Connolly.
news from you.
Got
This
Congressman
is
Jackson on with us.
WCPT 820.
Hey, Brother Dwight.
Good morning, Congressman.
Hello, Aaron.
Good morning,
Great to see you
Santita.
again.
To WCPT 820.
You as well. You as well.
Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see cloudy
Oh,
skies here
and
for
Dr.
today with a
Shanina
high
Knight,
into
an
the mid
infection
80s.
preventionist.
Winds out
She
of the
just hangs
southwest
out
around
because she
10 to
wants to
15
get the
miles
scoop
per
on the
hour,
news.
gusting as high as 25.
Hi,
Dr.
Tonight, a
Knight.
chance for showers and storms
Gotta
late,
know her.
cloudy at high of
Good morning.
64.
I've got to bring her to
Thursday, a
you,
chance for
Congressman,
showers and
because she's one
thunderstorms,
of
cloudy
the
with
there are
winds high
very
around
few infection
69.
preventionists
Then
in the
on Friday,
world. I
chance
think,
for
would you
rain and
say there are
storms
about
late,
30,000?
high around 63. That's your latest Chicago
35,000 in the world.
in the
Currently,
world.
it's 72.
And
This is 2 minutes.
Congressman,
PC,
she's got a really
Moment in
compelling
labor.
story.
In
She's the first
2009,
person in her
General
family
Motors
to
is
get a
facing
high school
bankruptcy
diploma, let alone
as a result of the
PhD.
Great Recession. Wanting to keep their jobs
She's
and help
not
the
40
company,
years of age
the
and is one of
unionized
the
auto
top
workers
healthcare
accepted
professionals in the
concessions
world.
to allow GM to recover. GM received a
We've
bailout
got
and
to bring
tax
her
breaks,
out.
while the
That's
employee
amazing.
rate stayed
Oh,
the same.
she's amazing.
Several
And she's
factories are
absolutely
slated to
brilliant,
close
and she'll
down.
make you
They're
afraid of
raising
your
priced
shadow.
healthcare premiums,
She's worse than
and very
Connie
few
John.
time workers being moved to permanent positions, all leading to 48,000 United Auto Workers
I mean,
walking
infectious
out in
disease
September
specialist with me every day.
2019. The workers
And
got
this
together,
petri dish.
protesting outside
Listen, I didn't hear
signs,
Santita like I think your grandmother
After
Gertrude did
6
that.
weeks of protest and General Motors losing $2 billion, they were willing to
Oh,
negotiate.
Johnny,
The
you
United
remember
Auto
how she
Workers
used
received a
to
3% pay raise, factories
she
staying
had,
open
she had
with
to
more
clean
being
our clothes
built,
before she let
a
them in the
set
house
process for
because she
temp
did
workers to
not
remain to
want
permanent workers,
the
and their
infections
healthcare
from the
premium
north
prices staying the same.
invading her
This has been
super
a
clean house.
WCPT Moment in Labor. We're working for your rights.
Oh, you can't make this stuff up. Wow.
Victor,
Back in 60.
Afghanistan in 2003.
Stand by.
At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, I
Congressman,
regret
you are
to
in a
inform
pe-
you
you
that
are
your
in-
husband was wounded in action. Victor
you're
sustained
in a
a
place.
moderate traumatic brain
I don't
injury.
know what else to
I
say,
was doing
sweetie.
school full time.
And Stephen
I was
Scalise,
also then caring for Victor.
the David Duke without the
One of
baggage.
the most important
You
elements
all
of
need to get all
caregiving is
over
taking
him.
care of yourself. I just didn't want to
does that?
forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I
that?
did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are
Okay.
Yeah, I
always
wouldn't put that necessarily on Steve. It's everywhere. I
We
mean,
have our own
you're
journey.
surprised at who you know and who
We
knows.
can fulfill
who.
the journey at the same
I
time
gotcha.
that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans
Henry, I
guide
need
to
you to
navigate
bring
your
the radio
caregiving
down
journey
just a
and
bit,
better
okay,
care for
during the breaks. But here we're
Sorry about
coming
that.
up. No worries, no worries.
We are about to come back.
Okay, fantastic.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Joining our morning stars, Robert Williams, Ari from Brazil. And I've got someone from Greenville, South Carolina, Congressman Jonathan Jackson. Hey, I love it. I love it. D. Jackson from Greenville, South Carolina. People tuning in from all over the country and all over the world on the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. History was made yesterday. For the first time in the history of the Republic, the Speaker of the House was vacated from their position. What happened? Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist and the dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project here in Chicago, and political strategist, nationally renowned political strategist and organizer, attorney Aaron Connolly, and historian from the University of Arizona, the brilliant Dr. David Gibbs, is with us. But I was able to secure Congressman Jonathan Jackson this morning. I'm so glad that we were able to get you. All right, we're sitting back. We want to know what happened. How did we get here yesterday? What happened?
And Peter, it's hard to come out of a deal right if you go in there wrong. These were rules that were agreed to, created by the Republican parties. At the end of the day, this was an infight, if you will, a mini civil war, an echo of something to come. These were Republicans taking on Republicans. Democrats had no fight in this at all. And so it's very misleading and very disingenuous, in my opinion, for former Speaker McCarthy to say this had something to do with Democrats. The way the rules have been set up, and the majority sets the rules, and the way this body convenes. And in January, when he was having trouble, starting January 3rd, getting over the threshold to be nominated for the Speaker after 15 rounds, culminating on January 7th, he agreed to one person could set forth the procedure for his ouster. previously, there was a low of 4 persons, and Mr. Gates had secured 5 people, and it grew to 8 people that sided with him. He had a narrow majority when he finally won of 5 votes on that January evening. And so it was a slim majority, maybe 218 to 212 at the time, somewhere around there. I can't recall specifically. And that was the rules that were set. And he had constantly been capitulating, kowtowing to an extremist group. All what he said to them, I don't know, but we heard some of that yesterday. On the spending cuts, he told them, he promised everybody something that he could not simply deliver. So after he took us to the brink in May.
Ooh, Congressman, you went out. We got to get the congressman back. Well, it appears, and we keep hearing in the news reports that he kept promising that if you sat in a room with him, he said the right things to everybody. That's impossible. Congressman Jackson, are you back? Okay, let's work on getting him back, Henry. But Dwight McKee, there's no way that can ever work.
Sorry, continue.
Oh, okay, Congressman, there's no way that can work, that you can please everybody. What was he thinking?
And so, I'm sorry.
No, please.
So now let me just get time on. So by the time they took us to the brink, this holdout group that was willing to let the United States go into default because we weren't going to raise the debt ceiling in May, it was a majority of the Democrats that saved McCarthy in May in order to stop a catastrophic default. And for that, we just got backlashed on. The Democrats were out of line and that he would not work with the Democrats. We saved the country from going into default in May. 1 week later, after that deal was agreed to, from the Senate and from the House, with the majority of Democrats supporting the minority of Republicans to get that bill passed, he says the next week, we're going to deal with this in appropriations, the spending cuts. The appropriation comes out in September and October. So he retraded the deal 1 week later. This is a character issue that Mr. Gates and other people in the Freedom Caucus have an issue with him. So now, after the August break, when we could have been negotiating, talking about this, they punt, pass, scooted all the way up the line, and then we get back to another deadline, and they have the same problem. They want to have drastic spending cuts in Veterans Affairs and TANF and WIC and SNAP. I don't know why they're so mad at women and children. And Democrats, the majority of Democrats, stood in a solid block and supported the minority of Republicans to stop the government from running out of money on this past Saturday. 72 hours later, which makes no sense on why he had us come back here. He could have delayed it, but he didn't. I just remember him saying, bring it on. And we got called back on the emergency to come back here on Tuesday, and this is what we walked into. So this is the infighting in their caucus. And then I look on the morning news and see the news last night. He's saying the Democrats sided with the extremists in the party, and it was our fault. We're not trying to keep fattening this guy to become stronger, to hurt us even more, to go against all the things. I think it comes down to one simple thing. His party wants to make sure that they pass legislation without one Democratic vote. I mean, McCarthy personally is a nice person. He knows everybody's birthday. He's affable. He's congenial, all that kind of good stuff, which made him the speaker. He's their most prolific fundraiser, principally and politically. And on the issues that affect me, I don't like him at all. But personally, we talk, say hello, let's just come into the office, all that kind of good stuff. But on the issue, he will capitulate and kowtow to this extreme. And ultimately, they came back and bit him in his behind. So, Santita, the Democrats did not ask for his motion to be removed. We weren't on the floor debate. We sat there and watched the Republicans go after each other for an hour, and for him to somehow say that it was Democrats. Then they said, oh, but he had a very slim majority, and it was very hard for him to govern. Nancy Pelosi had a 4-person majority. He's had a 5-person majority, and she never went through her bills not getting passed. okay, she could do the math on and keep her caucus together. So he's in an untenable situation. And in conclusion, the same little caucus group challenged Newt Gingrich, and then they came up with a new name. Same group challenged Tim Ryan, who was the Speaker of the House. They came up with a new name. Same group challenged Boehner. He put his keys in the mailbox, and they were asking to kick him out as Speaker. And the same little group challenged McCarthy and took him out. First time we've seen something like this in the history of this nation in 234 years since the Congress was established in 1789.
So help me, what does this mean? I mean, because there's nothing that's, you all go back into, you reconvene on Tuesday. How does that work? So nothing's going to get done? I mean,
wow. I look at it this way. There were 3 off-ramps, if you will, and there was a sign saying warning, danger, cliff ahead, slow down, caution, road under construction, and they just put their foot to the gas and just kept speeding, blowing past all the traffic stop signs, you know, and right now it's headless. It's headless, leaderless. We've got 43 days until a spending bill has to be approved or the government shuts down. There's no one to talk to. There's a temporary speaker that's been assigned that now has to reconvene us so that we can go back into session, so we can start where we were in January 3rd, that you saw played out on the selection of a speaker. So we're back to ground zero on selecting a speaker. So there's no one to bring a vote to the floor. That's where we are. So starting on Tuesday, the spectacle that you saw, which should have been a simple procedure, in January starts all over again. There's no one to talk to in leadership. There's a temporary person that they put in there. That was a new rule that they put in after January 6th. And kind of actually rather very insightful that they would have one. Prior to this, there wasn't a rule for this. It hadn't been anticipated. We'd be without a speaker. It's never happened before.
So the first order of business is not dealing with this averting another government shutdown. It's finding a speaker.
Correct. So as we speak right now, people in white jumpsuits with bubble wrap, tape, paper, going to the speaker's house, taking everything out, bundling that, putting that in pods, getting it to his house, sitting it to his office across. He said he's not running. We don't know who's up for consideration, who's running. Yesterday, after that vote, we're sitting there stunned. It was actually a sad day. There's nothing to gloat about. You know, at least there was somebody to talk to. Right now, there's nobody to talk to. Everybody was very solemn. And it didn't make anyone joyous and glad. Like, there were no high fives that we got speaker out. No, there was no joy in that, because we know this is pure chaos. And we're sitting around going back to our office, twiddling our thumbs, like we can't bring legislation to the floor. We can't have committee meetings. Like, are we adjourned? Are we in recess? What's next? And then finally we get a message from our whip that says, you've been dismissed. You can come back Tuesday. We were supposed to have been on in session and an in-session work week so that we could gather our petitions. We're going back on the ballots. I've got petitions to get filled out through the end of December. I need to be in district, touching people, getting petitions so I can get back on the ballot. And that's what I had planned for. Other persons had trips abroad to do committee work. All that's been suspended because we were being held up on the appropriations, and because they were anticipating a government shutdown, they told us our government credit cards were going to be cut off, and there was no travel. You'd have to come back to D.C. on your own and then get reimbursed. I mean, just pure calamity. And so I told you, and you thought my remarks were a little bit inflammatory when I said, what's been my first week like here? And I said, you know, it seems like it's a magical part to this. It's history. It's an honor to be here every day and see this great amount of history. On other days, it feels like it's a idea. It's a competition for ideas. It's an idea marketplace. On its worst day, I feel like I transferred into a bad high school. This is the day that it feels like you transferred into a bad high school. You're like, is this for real? Are these grown people? Like, come on. This is like some miniature gang banging cliques with a little faction inside one little gang. Like, what are you doing? And it'd be funny if it weren't so sad that the TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, and the Women and Children's Program, and the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, the Veterans Benefits, like people have real needs, and people that are coming across the border that need assistance down in Texas and trying to get some federal funds to our city that people are doing human trafficking, dropping people off on designated corners in the city of Chicago. It's like so much work that needs to be done, and so many people in need, they're depending on us. And now we've been dismissed to go back home on a whim and come back on Tuesday for what, to meet whom we don't know. So I wish I could tell you more, but they're huddling right now to try to make sense of it.
But it all seems very, very petty. I mean, before I asked Dr. Gibbs and Dwight McKee and Aaron Connolly to weigh in on this, I mean, because they even took Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Emeritus, they took her office away. I mean, what?
I don't know the procedural part of that. So Mrs. Pelosi was not with us yesterday. She's in California at Senator Feinstein's funeral. And so there's a transition of offices. I don't know. There's so many offices around here, and rules within rules. But like she's fine on office space. There are a lot of ghost offices around here. Once you win leadership, you get a bigger office. You keep your old office, and the longer you've been around here, you've got another room that I don't even know about behind all these doors that you have access to. So they're not short on office space around here.
It's a lot of rooms on Capitol Hill. A whole rooms behind rooms behind rooms. It's like Monticello. Yep, that's the way Monticello is too. Stay right there, Congressman Jonathan Jackson. Congressman, let me go to you, Dr. Gibbs.
Yes. All right. In terms of, I'm sorry, did you want to ask me something specific?
No, please.
Santita?
No. I see you're ready to go, so you go for it.
Okay, I'll go for it. Obviously there's a lot of just pettiness and sort of partisan and personal hatred and so on. That's a big part of this. But at the policy level, two issues come to the fore. One is a very familiar one that the Republicans have always wanted to gut the few remnants of the New Deal. They've never really accepted the New Deal. They want to eliminate as many social programs as they can. This is not a new thing, obviously. This has been going on for many decades. And this is very familiar to everybody. And that was clearly part of the agenda here in terms of the budget shutdown, an extremist faction that wanted to go to the match, so to speak, to further the sort of free market objective. But there's something else too. A second point is the Ukraine war. Now that is new. And what we have here is, part of a realignment this country is going through, in that skepticism or negativity about warfare seems to be moving towards the Republican Party and away from the Democrats. The Democrats are 100% lockstep, no dissent at all on the Ukraine war, absolutely none that I can discern. And the Republicans do seem to have debate on this issue and disagreement on this issue. And Ukraine was front and center in this recent budget shutdown. And one of the key issues was American funding for the Ukraine war. And the perception that this war is going on and on without a strategy, which is an accurate assessment in my view. There is no strategy. The Biden administration has absolutely no idea what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it at this point in time. It's becoming a forever war, one of the many we've had recently. And you do have the sort of people like Matt Gaetz who are showing some skepticism of that. The decision to oppose or I should say depose Speaker McCarthy, unprecedented in American history, very dramatic, very destabilizing. That was over Ukraine, is my understanding. And that there was an implication, there was a widespread rumor that was probably true, that on the one hand, the continuing resolution removed funding for Ukraine, while McCarthy appears to have had some sort of secret agreement with the Biden administration to restore the funding immediately. I believe that President Biden himself said McCarthy now has, the congressman can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe that Biden did say something to the effect that McCarthy must now honor his word and restore funding to Ukraine. Again, hinting at some kind of deal, backroom deal to restore the funding after it was removed in a continuing resolution. I believe that was at the heart of the decision to depose McCarthy, or certainly it was one of the major factors in the decision to remove McCarthy as Speaker. And again, it wasn't that many Republicans who did it. I believe it was only 6, essentially. All the Democrats, of course, voted against McCarthy based on partisan considerations, and 6 Republicans led by Matt Gaetz did so as well. And their stated objective, as I understand it, was to undercut the secret deal to restore funding for Ukraine. And does suggest a real shifting of the ground in terms of the political support for this war. I should add, this is backed by sound judgment in terms of polling. I mean, the polls do show now, there was a CNN poll that 55% of the American public opposes further funding for Ukraine, including 70% of Republicans. And so, Matt Gaetz can point to that and can note that, the public is turning against the Ukraine war, and Congress needs to be responsive to that. That's his logic. Again, I add that this is in addition to a fundamentally neoliberal objective of gutting the welfare state and undercutting programs that aid the poorest people in the country. And that's one objective. But again, the Ukraine factor here was also a factor in this entire drama, including the removal of McCarthy. And that really has to be emphasized. That fundamentally, I really do have to question the Biden administration's decision to refuse to negotiate and prevent this war, because this war has been profoundly destabilizing for the whole world and for American politics. And I think that the unprecedented nature of the removal of the speaker here is directly connected to the destabilization associated with the Ukraine war.
You are spot on. Let me add to that, and you're spot on. I would say Ukraine war is at top of the list, co-billing that would be deficit and debt reduction. So there's $33 trillion in our national debt, $2 trillion in the deficit. That's co-headline with what's the Ukraine plan and how much more funding they can get. Probably number 2 would be the issue with the border on what's the solution and how they're going to deal with the asylum seekers and the migration concern there. And probably the third issue would be on the spending cuts, what should be on the chopping block to reduce the deficit. What would be the solution in the last order? The last order would be on the spending cuts. This started with President Bush, really. We went into Iraq for the first time when the nation went to war. We declared war without raising taxes. And you can see so many problems that come out of that. War is expensive. Either we're going to put our children and families on the front line, or we have to pay more to shoulder the burden. But everyone has to sacrifice in war. That's not what's happening. On dealing with the debt and the deficit, we have to bring more jobs back home. What was the solution yesterday is the problem today on offshoring all of our manufacturing and joint venturing on our technology with China. And now in some ways they've gotten better at the things we used to do, and they became the manufacturing hub for the world. And somebody thought it was a good idea to send all of our jobs over there, which has come to be a disaster. And now they're trying to undo that mess. And then with the Ukrainian war, to the point you made on our last conversation, there has to be a debate about it. In this past year, I've seen the votes against I've seen the votes for Ukrainian spending. The votes that went against it were 70 the last time we voted on it. This past time was 91 or 93 votes to go against it. On a side note, I've got to tell you, there are 139 members in the Republican Party that voted to not to certify the election. So there's been a brewing group of dissidents in there that still fits in there. But there were 93 votes, and they were Republicans. There was one Democrat, because he's got Ukrainian Village in Chicago in his district, that wanted to make sure that our spending cap the appropriations had Ukrainian funding and it wasn't. So I understand why he voted against it. But there are 93 votes that are against Ukraine because they say, what about our borders right here and the homelessness and other things we're dealing with? So it's a debate that we need to have.
Stay right here, everybody. Talking with Congressman Jonathan Jackson. Can't wait to just go to the YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, so you can hear the conversation, the crosstalk during the break. And Congressman, you'll be joined by your colleague, Neely Ramirez, the first Hispanic woman elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from the Midwest. She's a great friend and sister beloved of this show. Whew. What a time, what a time, what a time. I'm Santita Jackson. Stay right here. Back in just a moment. Well, you picked a heck of a time to go to Congress, Congressman.
Yeah, right? You couldn't have picked it. But, you know, this thing echoes just everything, the time and the season of like the Civil War era. And I could see that coming, how it would play out. I didn't know. But if you look at since 2000 Supreme Court picking presidents, you start seeing an active judiciary that we had not seen before, that everything was wrong about the Bush v. Gore decision, making a once-in-a-lifetime decision.
Hello, Ms. Jackson.
Quote,
We have Congresswoman Ramirez and Attorney Hoffler ready to go.
I can't recall the exact details. Something went down in Ohio with John Kerry's votes that was all wrong. And then you saw what happened with when Al Gore, John Kerry. You see things where Mrs. Clinton received more votes than Trump, and she still couldn't win. Then you see, and Trump won by 70,000 votes. And then with President Biden, he beat Trump by 6 million votes, but actually won by 475,000 votes. And Trump specifically trying to call, give me 11,780 votes here. Give me the votes there. He could have flipped two or three states on that margin and could have actually flipped the outcome. And then he has an insurrection that he's never been charged for. And here we are with this wing that wanted to not certify the election, 139 people. And now this group that's actually representing their districts. I mean, I don't agree with them, but they are representing their districts. They were elected to be here. And if I could just go off script for one moment, I mean, I never mentioned the guy from New York that's here, and we don't even know his name. Like, how is this guy still in the Congress? And he actually has a vote that matters. These things are coming down to 5 and 6 votes, and he has a vote. I mean, that's power. And but they're talking about alarms and other things that could be an accident. But this guy's not an accident. He's grossly defrauded the government.
And you said it, we don't even know his name. Congresswoman Ramirez?
Good morning.
Good morning. We have Congressman Jackson. You all were both, I can hear why you were both endorsed by Bernie Sanders last year when you were running. Oh my goodness.
I appreciate Congresswoman Dahlia Ramirez so much. And not only is she the first from Illinois, she is the star of the Congress. And she is absolutely marvelous, and I appreciate her so much. And she's fighting a great fight. So everyone should be very, very proud of her in Illinois, but more importantly for the nation on what she's contributing.
Thank you, Congressman. It is truly a time where you have to make sure you have good people around you in the midst of this chaos. And I couldn't be more grateful to have the leadership of Congressman Jonathan Jackson. And we're fighting for Chicago, we're fighting for Illinois, but truly, as you said, Congressman, we're fighting for the nation.
No, look, we're on.
And you know what? And Santita, I have to say this, and this is one of the great things. I want to be very specific. I don't like broad platitudes. It's like there's so many things I don't understand about the migrant issues and immigration and asylum, because it's not been the culture and the life experience that I've had. But to call and lean on her, and she can explain it to me, very much like what she does in your radio program, is one of the beauties of this institution. And she's given me the insight on what happens, on who gets visas and who gets work permits and what's happened with Europeans, what's happening with the current challenges. And so I'm learning from her. So I don't know all these things. I'm not personally had to experience it, but she's there and she educates us. So I specifically appreciate that in her. And she's fighting. It's not a very popular fight, but she's making headway on teaching us and leading us into the right direction.
And she's doing this while she is dealing with a lot with her family. How are your parents doing? Because your father's had his health struggles. How is he doing?
He's doing so much better, Santita. Thank you for asking. He's doing so much better.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Why don't you explain? My brother didn't know.
Yeah, no, my dad, actually, when I was running for office after the pandemic, he had got really bad long COVID. And he was sick for a very long time and also struggling just with deep depression in the midst of it. And so it was difficult for him from day to day. And I tell you, slowly but surely, he's getting better every single day.
2 minutes.
Only having to watch the news and see what's happening in this country doesn't make it any better for anyone. But, I know that my dad and others are surrounded by good people in prayer. And he knows he has a daughter that is fighting every single day to make sure that, we fight for equity, we fight for justice, and that we do it together.
Well, this is a great thing. Dwight McKee, I've got less than a minute before we come back up. Hey, CK and Aaron. And of course, I back channeled and called Aaron. I said, Aaron, can you get Congresswoman Ramirez on?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Congresswomen and Congressmen. Great to hear you all and great to hear your comments. And thank you for what you're doing every single day for this nation, not just for Illinois, but for this nation and for the world.
Back in 60.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be here without all of you. We wouldn't be here without all of you.
Hello, my attorney.
Good morning.
Okay, Henry, pay attention to your text, okay?
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, get you all in. And I'm so glad that you all are with us today. This is great. Great, great, great. I've got an embarrassment of riches today with all of you wonderful people. Boy, this is a whole lot. But I have to tell you, yesterday made me very sad, Congressman Jackson and Congresswoman Ramirez. I mean, I felt very, very, very sad. Just watching it made me sad.
Stand by, about to come back.
I can't wait for Hakeem Jeffries to be the speaker.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world.
I'm giving you all the headlines.
We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, please like and share the show. We're so blessed to, in addition to Dr. David Gibbs, Dwight McKee, who we have not heard from. We're going to hear from him shortly. And of course, Attorney Aaron Connolly and Attorney C.K. Hoffler. We have got Congresswoman Daly Ramirez. She's made history herself, the first Hispanic woman to be elected to go to Congress from the Midwest. We're so happy that she's with us, joining Congressman Jonathan Jackson. They were both endorsed rather rigorously and vigorously, and I think correctly, by Senator Bernie Sanders. He came in to push them over the finish line when they were running for Congress last year. I am so glad to have you both with us. Congresswoman Ramirez, we've been talking with Congressman Jackson, and I could let you all talk amongst yourselves. What happened yesterday?
It was a sad day of deja vu. I don't know, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, how you felt, but I felt like I was going back to January 3rd, 2023, a day where we were all supposed to be getting prepared to begin doing the work of the country, representing the people in this country. and instead we were dragged out for 4 days. We went through that again 10 months later, but this time was just 42 days before the government shutdown if we don't actually do our job and pass appropriation bills. And yet, we sat in the midst of a fight between Republicans fighting themselves over who they think is pure enough to be speaker. But when all we've seen for 10 months has been chaos after chaos after chaos and the most hateful rhetoric against the people that we represent, that we are.
Well, what do you make of former Speaker McCarthy framing it this way? He said it's 3% of the Republican caucus, but it's 100% of the Democrats. And it became a talking point across the Republican platform. I said, wait, how did you put this on the Democrats, Congresswoman?
Santita, how could a man who lies consistently, who has failed us every single time through every major legislation, someone who last week was willing to push a resolution that would have made a 30% cut, not just to children, to education, to healthcare, but to even veterans that he says he cares so deeply about. How is it that that man expects us to trust him and save him when all he has shown us is to be a deceitful, lying person that doesn't even know how to negotiate with his own people, let alone he wants us to trust him? It's unacceptable. It's wild. Delusional is probably the best word to use.
Congressman Jackson, you sound like you're about to fall out your seat.
Well, I mean, I 100% agree with Congresswoman Ramirez. I'm looking at CNN while we're talking, and the headline is misleading. It says 8 Democrats,
8 Republicans
Democrats join
the 8 Republicans.
Right. So we didn't change. We've remained the same. We've always supported our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and he has the defection. So given the opportunity to vote against him again, this is the 16th time we voted against him this year. So his party changed. We didn't change. But that's so misleading. They brought the issue to the vote, to the floor, to have him removed. And we agreed because we want Leader Hakeem Jeffries. What's the solution going forward? Maybe those 8 persons should join us and now vote for Leader Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, so there is a way forward, but you got to be careful on how they misframe and deflect what the issue is. And those persons, listen to what they said. They said he changed the deal on them, and he didn't honor his word. And we agree. He didn't honor his word with us on the debt ceiling. He didn't honor his word on the spending bill, and he didn't honor his word. And we agree with him. So how are they saying that we've led this fight?
Congresswoman?
So disingenuous.
You just said it. You said, and I saw you trying to stop yourself, Congresswoman, to keep it clean. But I knew you're just standing there like, are you serious right now? I mean, because the question, it seems to me as I was listening to the reports, and I certainly want to hear from you, Dwight McKee, and you, Aaron Connolly, but Congresswoman, it seems that he is someone who did not honor his word with anybody.
He's never honored his word. Never. And I think, the idea that I could ever agree with anything Matt Gaetz to me is like unimaginable. But I do agree with him. He's a liar. I mean, we knew 10 months ago when he was going to every single Republican promising him, if you make me speaker, I will do this for you, I will do that for you. I knew there's no way you go make promises to 218 people, different promises that actually contradict the other promise you made, and survive it. And this is the reality. There is no leadership in McCarthy. You should see the chaos in our committees, the crap that they bring to committee, the amount of time that we're wasting in markups that we could be actually spending in negotiating and moving this country forward. If they say they care so much about the economy, Why are we not doing more to generate more workforce? The list goes on and on and on. But Congressman Jonathan Jackson is correct. I mean, we never changed where we are. How do you act shocked? We voted for Hakeem Jeffries 15 times straight over 4 days. And what you all of a sudden thought we were going to have a change of heart when all you've shown us is chaos? I'm actually just surprised he made it 10 months.
Ooh.
He certainly shouldn't have.
Ooh.
And Santita, let me add one other point to it. They want, and this is at the heart of what's so wrong, that anyone that's been in legislatures and government knows you talk to other people on the other side, and sometimes you build coalition. They have a no-talk policy with the Democrats. I started getting calls, Jonathan, this is the time people struck a deal. I've never been in government and legislatures before. They should go approach McCarthy after the 13th vote, the 10th vote, the 7th vote, and he'll do something with the Democrat. And I'm telling people that are experienced in legislature, they're not talking to Democrats at all. This was in January. Then in May, like, this is the time, the speaker. I said, they're not talking to Democrats at all. They don't want any Democrats to sign on to the bill. We supported their bill in spite of not being asked. And then after we supported, we're not even thanked. We're like berated and saying that the next time I won't talk to you again. And all the way up until his very demise, and this is probably the one thing that took him down. Had he approached Leader Hakeem Jeffries or had leader with Hakeem Jeffries and asked for our support, we might have been able to do something with him. They've never asked for our support and absolutely said that they were not going to solicit our support on anything. So he never wanted a Democratic vote. Had he asked, had he offered something, he probably would have had some votes. They have a no-talk policy with Democrats. And his party took him down, shall I say.
But he's blaming Democrats for this. 100% of the Democrats. It's your, whew, just, you know, if you
whatever lets them sleep at night. Whatever lets them sleep at night, right?
I mean, you got to. You all are there. Because I was slack-jawed. I don't know what it was like being in that chamber, because that was crazy. If you all were making history, but I know that's not the kind of history you wanted to make. Just very quickly, I want to get some quick responses from the panel here. I'm so glad that I have you and Congressman Jackson, Congresswoman Ramirez. I just didn't know that. I'm just glad you're here. Dwight McKee, just very briefly, your thoughts about what you've been hearing from Congresswoman Ramirez and Congressman Jackson. I mean, they have had a front row seat. They're in it. What do you think?
Well, I would just like to know, with so much at stake, including 45 days to budget, and the country being able to move into the next phase of itself, what is the strategy from here? I mean, how do we get past that? And did you all have somebody else in mind or a point of negotiation? And what are the points of negotiation from here? I'd be curious to know that.
Congresswoman, Congresswoman, you first, and then you, Congressman Jackson.
Well, actually, I was curious
because I don't know.
Yeah, no,
it's crazy.
Well, listen, it's mind-boggling to me, if we're being honest, that right now, the conversation that Republicans are having is, what do we do to keep Donald Trump from prison? Put him as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me, the number of Republicans right now, colleagues of ours, who are trying to figure out how to get Donald Trump to that chamber. Crazy. It gets crazier. But honestly, beyond the crazy, it is really sad. And yesterday, what happened should have been a moment, of mourning, certainly for us, for our democracy, for the work that we were sent to do. Congressman Jonathan Jackson and I came to Congress to fight to create health care opportunities for everyone, Medicare for all. We came there to ensure that we would build housing security, strengthen our economy, strengthen our workforce, help our home care workers. That's none of what we're able to do in the chaos that we're living right now.
But my strategy from here, that's my question.
Well, Dwight, let me try to step in and answer a part of that. The latest idea that's floating around that was coming out last night, because you do not have to be a member of the House, you don't have to be a congressional member in order to be appointed Speaker. The extremist group last night was saying, let's have Donald Trump as the Speaker of the House.
That's right.
That's floating around here right now as we speak. So no doubt be a part of their conversation today. I don't know how far that they can go. And legally it could happen as an extreme. Not saying it's on the agenda, but these are things that are in the rumor mill. And Dwight, we're not in their caucus. They took their leader out. They decapitated their party without a plan in mind. That's the analogy I was using on saying there were exit ramps and potential solutions that they've blown straight over to go right off of a cliff. So they were taking their leader out without a backup plan. They could have taken it to the floor last night. McCarthy's out, next batter is up. No. This was an emergency plan that was on a 4x6 handwritten card on who could be potentially in succession. This rule came up just after January 6th. So they have no long-term plan. Tim Burchett, who I would consider to be a friend, who was one of the 8 people to vote against Speaker McCarthy, was asked this question this morning, and he said, no, we're going to start looking for another leader. When they asked him that same question that you just asked, well, what's the plan? He said, well, there's some other people in there. Exactly who, we don't know at this time. So we're not driving this ship. We're not in this car. We're in the back seat with this thing is headless. And also, let me say, not only is the government headless, and let's put in perspective, the Speaker is no longer in power. So if something were to happen to our president, better on deck is the vice president, and then second in succession to the president is the Speaker of the House. There is no Speaker of the House. Same thing what Tuberville is doing in Alabama. He's stopping succession planning for the United States military. There's a group of people that took out McCarthy that don't want to govern. They're trying to dismantle the government as we speak. It sounds alarmist and extreme, but it is alarmist and it is extreme.
Yeah.
Congresswoman?
And Dwight, look, I was going to say, just to add to that, I mean, I think I echo everything Congressman Jonathan Jackson said. There is no strategy from their part. They'll tell you that they have a strategy, that they're going to be conducting candidates forums over the weekend, that they expect to come on Tuesday with someone they have all agreed to. They want to make sure that they elect a speaker in the first round. That's what they're saying. Those are their talking points, right? But you have now Scalise, the majority leader, shopping around the possibility of being speaker. You have some of the folks, that are saying, even Matt Gaetz, I might be willing to consider him, but Jim Jordan wants it as well, right? And then Donald Trump, and then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, that the only person that she could consider, you have Tucker Carlson amplifying that, is Donald Trump. So to me, I think to what Congressman Jonathan Jackson just said is, they have been headless, they have been without leadership. But I don't know how they're going to come to some kind of agreement where they all have different people they want to see lead. And the reality is that for us Democrats, I think the thing that we can do, our strategy has to be the strategy we've had over the last 10 months. We have to stay united. We have to stay focused.
Can I ask one other question?
Well, hold on.
I
want her to finish.
Well, what I was going to say is the last part, that some of us have been talking about is, if we are going to be coming to some form of possible negotiation, we have to start talking about shared governance. Because I don't know that they'll be able to get 8 of the people to agree to any of the people that they're going to be proposing. If they're going to end up meeting Democrats we're going to now have to force a conversation about what shared governance means. And no, I don't care about the pettiness about kicking. I mean, it's horrible, ridiculous what they did about taking Speaker Emeritus Pelosi's office or Steny Hoyer's office in the Capitol. Those are petty points they make. But if they want to actually work with us, then we can start talking about shared governance.
Well, I'm sorry, Steve Scalise, Dwight, I must say, he's a non-starter for me. He said he was, a David Duke without the baggage. I'm sorry. That's nuts. That just does not work.
I just wanted one quick question. One quick question is, how flexible are the Democrats on the Ukrainian issue?
Say more about that. Like, for example, what do you mean? How soon we introduce legislation?
Yeah, if that is part of the next negotiation on the Republican side, that they're willing to concede on some budgetary issues, concede on who the speaker may be, if Ukraine is on the table, as well as, immigration, how much flexibility is there? Are the Democrats willing to cut any money on Ukraine, or do they have any compromise on Ukraine?
Congressman Jackson, I know you serve in foreign affairs. I don't know if you've heard anything.
Yeah, no. So there's been no debate on Ukraine. I think it's a fair question. I'm in support of funding for Ukraine. We're looking at this as if you get a tyrant like Mr. Putin, who's now gone into this massacre and this gross bloodshed, I do think we owe the American people a discussion. We've had our Secretary of Defense over there, our Secretary of the Treasury saying we're all in on Ukrainian defense. Then what is our policy going forward on protecting territorial integrity around the world? So Ukraine is one issue. What does that mean for the rest of the world? There's a reason why there is a growing number of people from China and India and across Africa and Brazil that are saying, hey, that's your problem, America. That's not ours. They simply want to know, how will we come to the defense of other similar disputes? And if Russia continues to gain momentum, what state and what country is next? Do they go into Poland? Where does this stop? So they want to stop the Russian territorial expansion and aggression. I get that. But the American people are owed an explanation. And when people see funding going to a region that they may not be that familiar with, and they're like, look at what's happening in our own borders, looking at what's happening with our own country, we also could use the money for housing and assistance here. How do we compensate that? It's worthy of a conversation. Totally agree with that. I'm not being dismissive of it. The other issue that we're going to confront is there's growing homelessness in our own country. So the money that's going abroad comes at the expense of money at home. It's a conversation the president owes the American people. So on that, I agree.
Aaron Connolly, we haven't heard from you.
Well, good morning, and thank you both for your service to our country during this historic chaos that is echoing my memories of last January, and showing that Speaker McCarthy unfortunately set up his own destruction, right? The system that he agreed to back in January to seize control of the House was a corrupt bargain that ultimately led to his demise. And I think Congresswoman Ramirez said it perfectly, that she was surprised his speakership was able to last this long. And his tenure and his legacy, I think, will be remembered as one that is, chaotic, one that was not able to lead his folks or our country in any real way, that only produced political theater and nothing of substance. Certainly not in the times that we need all to come together, right? This idea that you're not even talking to Democrats during a time in our history where we need all hands on deck to do what's best for the American people is insulting to all of us, and insulting to the public servants who show up every day and do this work, right? And let's remember that we only have how many days until the government shuts down again, right before Thanksgiving, if we don't reach a deal. And all I hear is Democrats out in front willing to come together and have some actual discussions on how we make this government work for the people. And for Senator McCarthy to blame Democrats, I think the American people now are smart enough to recognize his projection and understand the truth. He has never been a fan of facts, but the American people are. So I look forward to holding him more accountable.
30 seconds for you, Jonathan, Congressman Jackson. Ooh, I slipped.
Santita, you could not have convinced 99% of the people in the Congress yesterday that 24 hours later we would not have a Speaker of the House. I mean, this is blindsided.
Congressman, you don't have a head of the legislative branch of government.
We never saw it coming. I didn't. Maybe someone did, but there was no rumor that it could be headless in 24 hours.
Congresswoman Ramirez.
Dahlia, can you agree with that?
You have no head of the legislative branch of government. We got a tricameral form of government, legislative, executive, judicial. We don't have head of the legislative branch. I'm going to bring on a Republican, Joe Pinion. He's coming on right now. Maybe he can explain what happened in that caucus. Back in just a minute. Santita Jackson Show. Well, this is not the way I expected the show to go today, but you know, the best shows happen this way. Congresswoman Ramirez and Congressman Jackson. Y'all just.
Listen, it's been a long 10 months, hasn't it, Congressman? Definitely not what we expected we would be walking into. We didn't think we knew that we were walking into chaos. We didn't think it'd be this bad.
This is crazy.
Right. Santita, we are on our calendar. We put the calendar out in January, the days and blocks and weeks and time we're supposed to be in district. We're supposed to be in district out of here for these 2 weeks. And we were supposed to leave out last Thursday. We had to stay over until Saturday night. We voted. It was done, finished, over. And we're supposed to be gone for 2 weeks and come back. I mean, like, we live off the calendar. He should still be Speaker to the next 2 weeks after this bill was passed and kept us here Saturday. We got an emergency call to come back in here. We're going to go back in session on Tuesday. And everybody's like, what is this? We come back in here. And then this vote hits the floor. It happened just that fast. And then that afternoon, that evening, it goes to the floor. We have a long, deliberate caucus meeting yesterday morning where our leader, Jeffries, and our leadership team, and Ted Lieu and Catherine Clark and Pete Aguilera, all sat down there for 2+ hours, didn't cut us off. Everyone could voice their opinion, raise questions, give comments, pro, yay, nay, what should we do? And Leader Hakeem Jeffries was very contemplative, very somber, listened to everyone's opinion, and gave us our clues on which way to vote. Right?
Hi, Ms. Jackson. We have Mr. Pinion ready to go.
Let us support, so that we can move forward. That's our marching orders, and we sat still. That's all we did. And we held our votes to see which way they were going, and then we went to the well, filled out the cards, and voted alongside of the new moving leadership. That was it. And we're standing there like we didn't anticipate this. Why Mr. McCarthy brought this, called us back in session, I know he said he wanted to capitulate to get into their individual spending bills. He did not have to call us back in there. He could still be Speaker of the House right now. He called us back into session when he did not have this worked out. And then I saw him on TV saying all what we did wrong in helping him pass the bill to avert the government shutdown and blame us. Then he called us back into session where he tells Matt Gaetz, bring it on. And guess what? He knows the name Gates today. He brought it. He brought it on. And he's still blaming us. I mean, he could grow up some on that.
I want to introduce all of you to Joseph Pinion. In fact, he was a Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate. And how many votes did you get, Joe? In New York?
Around 2.5 million.
Back in a minute.
Very proud. But as I tell them, they don't send you to D.C. with 44% of the vote. But again, I guess the last person got 27%. So we're making headway.
He's kind of like Angela McGlowan King, Jonathan, Congressman Jackson. He's a sane Black Republican.
Love it.
So had Congresswoman Ramirez, I had to bring him on because I said, this is his group. I want him to explain. You need CK, he's got to explain why we do not have the head of the legislative branch of government, Joe Pinion.
Well, look,
No,
I
we're
think
about
certainly,
to come on. No, hold on. We're about to come on. No, save, hold your fire.
Save it all. Yep.
Santita, I gotta jump off the room.
I'm gonna let you.
Actually,
I want you to make your closing thought, and then
stand by.
But I'm so glad you said. And she was only supposed to stay for a few minutes.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I agree.
Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, she was supposed to be with me for like 5 minutes. I hope your staff will forgive me and let you come back because I know we just got caught up.
I'm sure they will.
But what's your closing thought?
Look, I don't know. We should be mourning in what we see that's happening in Congress. And in some cases, I want to believe that we can't get any worse, but then you hear people nominating or considering Donald Trump for Speaker. So we're living really hard times. And what I would like to ask every single one of my colleagues, and I want to ask the people listening, hold us accountable to the job you send us to do. We have to pass a spending bill. We have to fund the government. Our seniors, our children, our communities depend on that. Over the next 42 days, we have to come together, elect a speaker that's going to get the job done. I'd say without a doubt, Hakeem Jeffries can do that. We only need 6 Republicans to vote for him. But folks, we've got to stop wasting time. We have to make sure that we fund the government, and we have 42 days to do that. That's what I'm committed to. We have to get to work, and these shenanigans got to stop. They have to stop.
Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, cannot wait to have you back. Please give my love to the staff and thank them for allowing you to stay with us for so long today. But wow, what's past is prologue.
Thank you, Santita.
What we went through, and you cost me a lot of money in January. I was like day one, I was prepared to be there a couple of days. But every day I was like, this is a new hotel bill. Y'all driving me crazy. Congressman Jackson.
The hotel prices kept going up.
I was like, what's up? But I'm sending you much love. Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, everybody. And she's got they're going to have their petitions out. So sign them. We got to get Congresswoman Ramirez and Congressman Jackson back into Congress. Sending you much love, Congresswoman Ramirez. Congressman Jackson. Yes, Reverend. Yes,
let me bounce. I want to say love you.
I love you.
Your program. Thank you, Congresswoman Ramirez. Love you, baby.
I love you. I love you. Whew, okay, everybody. CK Hoffler, legal Q&A with CK. This was not the plan this morning. Dr. Gibbs and Dwight McKee and Aaron Connolly, but here we are. And you know what? I saw my friend Joe Pinion. He and I have done several shows together, and he's someone for whom I have tremendous respect and admiration. A sane Black Republican, but I can say that we have some sane Black Democrats. We have nuts everywhere, but I have a lot of respect for him. And when I saw him on CNN, I've been seeing him on CNN, really making sane cases, and I've appreciated that. I said, I haven't talked to Joe in a minute. And so last night, when all of this just popped off, I said, no. Before he does everything else that he's got to do today, please, Joe, come in and speak to us. Republican strategist, Senate candidate from the great state of New York, got 44% of the vote against Chuck Schumer. Not bad. Talk to us. What do you make of what's happening, Joe Pinion? What is this?
Well, look, I think the now former Speaker of the House, I think, said it best. Chaos is not conservatism. And chaos also isn't governance. And what we have right now in D.C. is chaos. There is a reason that no matter what you think about any of the speakers that we've had, that we've never had them removed in the midst of a legislative session. And it's because all of the people have sworn an oath to do the people's business on behalf of a grateful nation. And right now, that work has not been done. And so when you see somebody like Matt Gaetz effectively throw the entirety of this country into disarray, it is troubling. It has to be. Because if you're looking at the objectives, whether your objective is to investigate, whether your objective is to have responsible governance when it comes to debt, whether your objective is to make sure that you're going to take back a majority politically, none of those three things is positively impacted by basically shutting down the government of this country. So we averted a shutdown because of the debt ceiling. We end up with effectively a shutdown anyway, because without a Speaker of the House, nothing's going to get done. So, that's my word. It's unfortunate. It is chaotic. To remember that they are accountable to the people and to do the people's work.
Where are you hearing anything about where the Republicans plan to go from here? I mean, because Congressman Jackson was just on here, and Congresswoman Ramirez said there's no plan, and the way Congress is structured, the majority rules.
I mean, look, there is, it was telling that during the 15 rounds of voting, the 15 lashes that they gave McCarthy on his way into the speakership, there was no plan. There was no alternative. I am a good old roll the toothpaste tube up kind of guy, right? That if you throw out the toothpaste tube before you have a new one, all you're left with is halitosis. And so you need to have a plan. And so politically, all we have right now is halitosis. You have, again, 8 individuals effectively deciding, one really, that the speaker had to go with no plan. So 8 months later, 7 months later, however you want to do the math, they still don't have an alternative. And so I would make the argument it is irresponsible to make this decision without an alternative. So I think there was genuine shock from the caucus, genuine anger from the caucus. And I think hopefully that they'll be able to find some candidates. Certainly you're hearing people like Steve Scalise. Certainly he has some health concerns there, and we pray for him. But I think from a temperament standpoint, and also just from a political standpoint, he is a figure that is capable of uniting the caucus. Somebody like Elise Stefanik, also similar in those characteristics. But who's to say what's going to happen? I think that, the statement from Hakeem Jeffries, I call him the Speaker of the House in waiting for the Democrats, talking about wanting traditional Republicans to come back to the table and walk away from the MAGA extremists. But I would also say to my Democratic brothers and sisters that, this term, this label of MAGA extremist seems to be on a sliding scale. That yesterday it applied to the 8 people, but sometimes it has been applied to the whole. And so if you're simply going to sit back and let it burn, as I said yesterday on CNN, it is not just the Republican Party. The Republican Party is parcel and part of America, and it is America that burns when the people who have raised their hand to do the people's bidding decide that the political optics matter more than finding some type of common ground to continue with the business of the American people.
We're talking with Joe Pinion, Republican strategist. He indeed was a Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate in New York. He got 44% of the vote against Chuck Schumer. We didn't hear about that nationally, but it sure did happen. But let me ask you this, because Steve Scalise, he's problematic for me. I say that as an American, as a Black person, someone who says, and God knows I pray for him as he battles cancer, and apparently he's doing it successfully. Thank God for that. And we prayed for him as he survived the shooting at the congressional baseball game practice every spring. The congresspersons, and typically they're quite collegial. They have a baseball game, and he was shot, and thankfully he survived. But he called himself the David Duke without baggage. That for me is very problematic, deeply problematic. There is no universe in which being David Duke is admirable. And I mean, and he's in leadership. I mean, what?
Look, I've had occasion to interact with the congressman. I found him to be cordial. I found him to be a man who wants to do what's right for the country. I think, look, politics aside, if you're having a conversation about the legacy of race in this country, if you're having a true conversation about the nature of politics in this country, that is also very difficult to square some of the rhetoric with the policy. And there has certainly been political rhetoric that has been harmful, has been inflammatory to a community of Black people who have been seeking to find power within a nation that was never truly designed to empower us. In fact, I always say the legacy of Black people in this country is finding ways to leverage tools that in many ways were built by us but not designed for us. So, yes, I think certainly if you're looking at people, particularly people who have been in D.C. for some time, you're going to find things that, as we talk about that particular legacy, are troubling. But ultimately, right now, in this moment, I think we have to find a way to get the people's business done. None of the objectives that either party has can be achieved in the absence of leadership. And I think that is what we're called to do, irrespective of any of the individual grievances that we might have with the individual. I don't necessarily think that the case against Steve Scalise, even from a historical racial perspective, are so high as to say that we would continue to allow the government to stalemate because of it.
Oh, I don't want the government to stalemate, but you know, Jewish people have a red line. I think Black people have to have a red line. We're both Black people. And my red line is the KKK. That's one of them. And when you identify with someone who mainstreamed KKK politics, shaved his beard, took off his mustache, and put on a suit, and you say that you're the David Duke without the baggage, that's problematic for me. I don't think that we should have this branch of government be headless. Our pastor used to say, 2 heads make you a freak, 1 head is without no head is a monster. But I mean, there's some things you got to say, wait a minute, wait. You need to explain this because everybody's talking about the shooting and his cancer battle, and you should. Personally, he's a brave person, and I've met a lot of these folks, and you get along with them personally. But there's some things, given our history in this country collectively, and given our history as a people, it's unacceptable. You can't tell me, you cannot look me in my eye and tell me you're David Duke without baggage, and I'm not supposed to go, wait a minute, what do you mean by that?
I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I think overwhelmingly the hard truth is that there is nothing about David Duke, in my opinion, that is anything that anyone should want to defend. It is not a defensible position. So I recognize the statement on his face, is effectively a comment that is indefensible. So the question for me for this juncture is not, whether you live in Steve Scalise's district and should be voting for Steve Scalise. The question becomes, do we have a person that can allow us to get back to the business of the American people? That's my perspective. And I think, look, there are plenty of candidates that are going to emerge. We don't know whether it be Steve Scalise, whether it be Elise Stefanik. Some people are talking about President Trump, which I don't think is going to happen, namely because he's running for president, which is the whole. So there are many, the multitude of issues that are going to be thrown around here. And I think hopefully in this process, we can try to find the common ground and the grace and civility that's required to have a nation of over 350 million people finally start moving towards some of the objectives that transcend our politics.
Well, Joe, I know that you're running. I know I caught you in between meetings today, and I thank you for making the time to be with us today. But just your closing thought, where do we go from here? You have a tricameral form of government. You've got the legislative branch, you've got the executive branch, you've got the judicial branch. We have a missing space in the line of succession to the presidency. Something's got to happen.
We just have to figure out what kind of country do we want to be. Are we going to be a country that effectively digs in our heels and says that, we're all content to burn together as long as we get to laugh at the people on the other side? Or are we going to go out here and be called to be the firemen that we have been historically called to be? I think that we are called to put out the flames. I think that it is easy to be an arsonist and try to do what Matt Gaetz did. It is much harder to be an architect. There's a reason why architects get paid more than demolition man, because anyone can blow things up. It takes a special set of skills to build. And I think that if that is where the country moves towards, I think that that is something that will eventually start to emerge more and more in our politics. So we have to choose it. Civility is a choice, and we have to determine where we all stand.
Joe Pinion, Republican strategist, you have a home on the show. You got to come back.
Absolutely. God bless.
God bless you. Whew. Okay. Dr. Gibbs, please weigh in. Attorney, hold on one moment. C.K. Hoffler, are you still there? I know you're running to a deposition.
I have to run into a deposition, but let me just say this, Santita, this is exactly the show we needed today. There would not be any legal structure, any legal ramifications to talk about if we don't have a head of our legislative branch. This is a crisis beyond what we can predict in this country, and that is reverberating and having international ramifications. I believe that there is a significant move to have the former president be Speaker of the House. If that happens, massive chaos, as we've never seen, will break out in this country. And I believe that is where the Republican Party is headed. That's where the Republican members of the House are headed. And I just don't have words to express the chaos. And then finally, I want to say, in the field, like people, like I'm sitting here in Georgia, they don't know what's going on at all. The message that the Democrats were never approached, all of the information that Congresswoman Ramirez and Congressman Jackson shared with us today is not getting out to the people. And they're drinking some of the Kool-Aid, and the blame is being placed on the Democrats. So the messaging for the Democratic Party, Democrats in the House needs to get out. And also there needs to be a solution. And back to what Dwight McKee asked, what is the solution? What's the next step? The fact that the Republicans don't have a cohesive next step, except for one that they would all agree on. We need to take that seriously, because that would be hugely problematic. And that would be to have the former president as Speaker of the House. All right, Santita, I got to go to my deposition and slay some more dragons. And I say prayers for our country.
Absolutely. Well, it's an opportunity. Dr. Gibbs, we have a crisis. Yes. We have an opportunity. Oh,
I think that what you have here looking at this crisis is kind of a further move towards kind of the destabilization of the United States of a sort that we really haven't seen, at least in my lifetime. That's really very disturbing, especially because, again, I've mentioned this before in this show, but I am very worried about the possibility of political violence. And I studied that in other countries, and it's not a pretty thing to look at, and certainly not a pretty thing to see in your own country if it comes to that. That is what I'm worried about here. And the destabilization of the Republican Party is there for all to see. But there really is also a dysfunction of the Democratic Party that I guess I would note as well, which is almost in reaction to the Republicans' instability, the Democrats have become almost in lockstep with each other. Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, praised the Democrats as being a well-oiled machine. I just wonder if that's a good thing. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez, she was elected partly to challenge the establishment, but now she's praising the Democratic Party for its lack of debate. And there really is an extraordinary lack of debate within the Democratic Party, paralleling the Republicans' extreme and destabilizing debate that they're having. And without any sense of balance, and basic issues are being swept under the rug. I keep coming back to the issue of Ukraine, because I think so many other things are tied into that. Spending, living standards, the environment, climate change, they're all very connected to the war in Ukraine to a significant degree. And we're getting no debate, certainly in the Democratic Party, on this issue, to the extent that they're getting debate. It has been, I'm sorry to say, in the Republican Party. It's very surprising, just because basic issues like the fact that this was an avoidable war, this war could have been avoided, but the Biden administration did not avoid it. This is not being discussed. The fact that there is no strategy, that it's turning into an endless sort of forever war, that's not being discussed. And do we want a forever war? There's no debate on that, certainly not in the Democratic Party. And I see that also as very dysfunctional. So I see kind of a mutual dysfunction here that is rapidly spiraling out of control.
Aaron Connolly, what do you see? Was Aaron might have had to take her.
Well,
okay, I was about to say you might have
no,
had to
not
take
quite
her.
yet.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I see, I like to get the international perspective and see how the rest of the world views this. And what concerns me is exactly what the professor is pulling us on, is that there's bigger geopolitical issues at play here that underline all of the politics and the horse races that will be impacted by this, and the very important domestic legislation that's at stake for folks. But the bigger picture is global, right? And it impacts our markets, it impacts our strength, and how we present to our allies and how we present to our enemies. And this does not, this historic shift where we're setting a new precedent that this type of chaos is okay. This type of chaos is built into the rules that are governing a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, and that essentially one member of Congress can shut down a governing body. That's what we're seeing here. That's what history is showing us we are allowing, right? So that type of destabilization is not good for anyone in the world. And I'm heartened to hear that the Democrats are open to finding some historic solutions to this crisis, but it takes everyone at the table. And where we are in our politics from January 6th on has shown us that we still have quite a lot of work to do to even come sit at the table together. That's unacceptable for the American people. So this will impact politics, but it also impacts global trade. It impacts geopolitical stability for our troops abroad, at home, at the many bases that we have throughout the world, right? So we have to understand that this is a global issue, and the rest of the world is concerned.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, I see it. I think it's a little differently. I think that when I asked what the strategy was, I wasn't talking about the Republicans. I was talking about the Democrats. I see it as a lost opportunity, and I would have saved McCarthy because you know what his politics are. You know you have to save the government, and it seems like they was more prone to punish him than to save the government. I know he's a liar, like many politicians are, and you can't trust a lot of what he says, like most politicians. But at least you got a sense of his parameters, and he was willing to put something on the table to compromise, to cut a deal to save much of the budget. Whereas you don't know, since you had no strategy, since you didn't save him, you don't know who the alternative is going to be. And if Trump is going to be the alternative, then it is going to be Disasterville for the Democrats, because he's going to be more intransigent, much less negotiable. And what the Democrats had a chance to do was to take the yoke off of McCartney, the yoke of the right off of his neck, and give him some latitude to be at least a little more progressive. But they end up really kind of sacrificing him. Whereas if they'd have saved him, at least they would have known what they was dealing with, and he was committed and had the votes with them to be able to save the government. Now it's going to be absolute chaos, because the strategy, whoever they put in now, when they look at what happened to McCartney, they're going to be more prone to McCarthy. They're going to be more prone to compromise with the right. They're going to be more intimidated by the right. And the goal now is going to be for the country to crash and burn.
Well, you know what?
And
well, hold on, because I got a minute before we get out. Less than. Everybody stay tuned on the YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, because we're going to continue this conversation. I just saw Tracy. You said that you're a new listener to the show. I'm glad that you are. But it bothers you that you feel that I have more Republican talking points. No, you don't hear that. I don't have anyone's talking points. I'm an independent Democrat. I grew up in Chicago under the tyranny of the Democratic Party. And one of the things that I've learned in politics is that you have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, you have permanent interests. So I don't take anyone's talking points, don't give them to me. But I have a permanent interest and permanent principles. I want a fall beneath which no human being should fall. I want to end poverty, I want to end war. And I'm going to work with people to get there. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. So please keep listening. And just know this. I don't do talking points. I do truth. I love you, everybody. Stay here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel so we can get some thoughts from this tremendous panel. What a day we've had with Congressman Jackson, Congresswoman Delia Ramirez. Didn't expect to have them so long, but thank you for being with us and letting us know what it's like to be on that floor. The Democrats were not asked for any cooperation at all. It's problematic. With a speaker that they could not trust. That's problematic. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless everybody. Stay here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I'm going to continue this conversation for a little bit longer. Well, you guys, wow. Aaron, do you have anything else? Because I know you're running today. But I want to thank you for staying so long.
I think this is an important conversation, and I think I want to emphasize again that somebody is in charge of this house, right? And I really want to push back on this idea that this is a Democrat blunder in any way. As CK alluded to, the corporate media is pushing McCarthy's narrative, and that's unfair. Okay, the Democrats were willing to come to the table to keep the government functioning. The speaker can't be trusted on so many levels with people in his own party and people outside of it. And as the moves on Nancy Pelosi's office, those type of petty little things
it's
that
so mean.
So it's a lack of respect for the institution, right? And that's my larger concern, is that the Republicans have lost any sort of respect for themselves. And that's a dangerous place to be, right? That's when they're making decisions without counting votes. This is McCarthy math, Republican math, as we talk girl math, boy math this week on the internet, right? This math doesn't add up. If you don't have the votes, just like back in January, there will be chaos. And that agreement was corrupt from the start and set him up, and will set the next speaker up if they take the same deal, right, for another round of chaos whenever one of these extreme folks decides that they want to throw a hissy fit about defending Donald Trump. I think that news is very concerning for all of us, that there's a legitimate movement to try and nominate former President Trump, especially given his situation this week. So I would love to hear thoughts on that side of it. But from an institutional perspective, we have to elect folks that understand that governing is the most important thing. We cannot have this type of chaos in our legislative body.
Well, you know what? I think it speaks to just also where we are. I mean, people have a lot of different feelings about a lot of different things. And so many of the most profound issues, Dr. Gibbs, are censored out of the conversation, right? We've not had a debate on Ukraine. You don't want, many people don't want me to bring Robert Kennedy on here because we can't hear from him because he's got a position on we're shooting ourselves in the feet, and it's not a good thing. Mildred Brank says, good job, excellent show, have a wonderful day, be safe. Osa says, I can teach you foreign policy. and educate you on more. I think he and Pearl have been going back and forth. Barbara Bacon says, have a great day. Let me keep on going. Gilbert says he's an independent Democrat. TJ, Germany didn't invade America during the 1940s. And Daniel says, so many Democrats think because one disagrees with the neoliberal corporate establishment that they're against all Democrats. Amen. The Democratic Party we have is not the Democratic Party I heard about 40 years ago when I was a kid. This is a corporatized party that is neoliberal in style and in substance. And that hurts you and me. This is the party of NAFTA. They took all of the manufacturing out of the United States of America. How did that help us? How did the corporatization of the Democratic Party help us? And when I go against that, I'm the problem. Oh, no, 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 no. Well, no. And I'm going to stay right here on that. No, I'm going to stay right here on that. And I do. And Lorraine said, you might not have listened to the show. And, I hear you, but I think you listen, but you're not hearing from me what you want me to say. And I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And I have lived experiences that point me in this direction. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. No one was more oppressive than Richard J. Daley and the Chicago machine, the Chicago Democratic machine, which was racist, classist, and they choked Black people and ran Dr. King out of town when he came here on fair housing and civil rights. When Dr. King got here, he said these were the meanest white people he'd ever seen in his life. And I'm supposed to stand with that? It's just like Steve Scalise. You got a joker who could become Speaker of the House, and I'm supposed to say, well, we got to save the government. Oh, like hell we do. This man said that he is David Duke without baggage. Are you serious? Do you not have an insult level? And I'm not just speaking to Black people. I'm saying anybody. There's some things I'm not willing to release. The Klan? Oh, no. That's my red line. Can't respect that. And I wish him well in his cancer battle. And I'm so glad that he survived that shooting in 2017. I'd be inhumane if I pulled for someone to be hurt. But no, you need to explain that to me. You need to look me in my eyes and tell me why you are proud to stand with David Duke, why your closest associates work with David Duke. You need to explain that to me. Dwight and Dr. Gibbs and Aaron, that is insulting to me. And this man is a House Majority Leader. He's the whip. Get out of here. And he is the man who could be Speaker. He's gathering up more votes than anybody, according to press reports, than anybody. And corporate media has not mentioned one time that he said that he was David Duke without the baggage. Not one time.
Well, the Democrats should have thought about that before they let McCartney get away. I'm saying that
you could have the Beatles on the brain
McCarthy
today.
Get away. Yeah, McCarthy get away. It's McCarthy get away. It's we could have neutralized the Democratic right with 8 votes and brought balance to that situation. I thought the Democrats had a very poor strategy going into this, honestly. And they didn't weigh what the alternative was going to be. And the alternative, I think, is going to be far worse than McCarthy, because now they are going to be more intimidated by the right than they would have been otherwise. I think it was an opportunity to at least bring some compromise and some balance into this thing. But now I see it getting way, way out of hand. And the reason I think that we were so I'm with the professor on this. A reason I think we were so non-negotiable on this is because they put the Ukraine war on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And since they pulled it out of the budget and said they wanted a separate discussion about that war, and the Democrats didn't want to give any leeway, no negotiation, no room, no compromise on that war. That's what I really think this is about.
Oh, Dr. Gibbs, what do you think? I agree.
It's a big question. the big question is who's going to come out on top of this politically. And, I suppose the Democrats are betting that the Republicans will look like the party of chaos who can't govern, and that they will look like the party of responsibility. That's how it's certainly being portrayed. That's how they're going to portray it, during the course of the election campaign. But there's a catch to that, as Dwight just noted, which is the war in Ukraine. That was front and center in this issue. And people like Matt Gaetz were gambling on the idea that the Ukraine war is becoming unpopular and becoming increasingly unpopular. And that by standing on that issue, that the Republicans, or at least the faction of the Republican Party represented by Gaetz, and I guess implicitly by Trump, will benefit from this issue. As the public increasingly turns against the Ukraine war, as the war more and more goes badly on the ground, and it's obvious the American strategy is failing, as that becomes more and more obvious, as more and more people turn against the war, Matt Gaetz will look better and better. I don't say that with any pleasure because, again, one of the things he's doing is clearly trying to gut the welfare state and destroy programs that help the poorest people in the country. I'm just noting objectively that it's not at all guaranteed that people like Matt Gaetz are going to end up looking bad on this issue. They could end up gaining support on this issue and looking like, maybe they had a point here, notably, again, on the key issue of Ukraine. So I think the Democrats may be a little bit premature, announcing that they've won this battle. I'm not so sure they have.
Dwight? Aaron?
Oh, I totally agree.
So,
Is Aaron still there? Go ahead, Aaron.
No. I mean, Dwight, sound it out because I want to hear what you all are saying, and then Aaron, of course.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that that's the white elephant in the room is that war, in that the Democrats are so non-negotiable on that war, and they're willing to risk the whole government crashing, trying to salvage that war. That I'm not sure it's salvageable at this point. And I think that the Republicans have made a calculation that that the professor just reinforced, that this war has become so unpopular with the general constituency, especially with what's happening with the rest of the economy, and as people see their own economic reality be more compromised, and watch all this money fly overseas, that they're going to become more hostile about that war. And the momentum is going to shift to the Republican side. And that's why I say I'm not sure the Democrats had any strategy. And that's my disappointment. I think that they just went into this, got blindsided, and had no long-range strategy to come out of this thing. And they saw it as an opportunity to punish McCarthy. And indeed, and they let him drown with no alternative, no strategy for an alternative, no sense of who the alternative is going to be. And I think the alternative is going to be worse.
But
and could be Trump.
It could be. Aaron, are you still there? Well, Dr. Gibbs and Dwight, but starting with you, Dr. Gibbs, I think that's what made me sad yesterday. I really felt you had some people who were not thinking this through all the way through. Number one, we have a branch of our government that does not have a head. And then they said, okay, we're going to go home for a week. Because people are running for re-election. They've got to get their petitions in. That's what that is. I'm like, are you serious right now? And Matt Gaetz, well, first of all, I knew when he gave one person the power to take him out, I said, this is not going to end well. I said when we were leaving Washington, I said, he's not going to make it through the year. Because there is no way that you can walk that fine line. There's no way. No way. And it gives me another kind of appreciation, Dr. Gibbs, for really the political genius of Nancy Pelosi. Because she had 4 or 5 votes, and she was able to hold her caucus together, raise more money than anybody, and keep things moving. I mean, right now this is a mess. And boy, what do you think will happen if they bring Trump in? Because they could very well do that and make him the Speaker of the House. You don't have to be a member of the House to become the Speaker of the House. What do you think that would? I mean, just play that out for me, Dr. Gibbs.
I've never looked into I never really thought about the issue of Trump becoming Speaker. I don't even know about the legality of that, honestly. If that's even legally feasible, given that he's not a member of the House. So I can't really comment on that at length. I suppose what I would say is that the Democratic strategy, insofar as there is one at all, seems to be just running again, just sort of more so than usual, demonizing the Republican Party and running against the Republican Party and identifying the Republican Party with Trump. Largely a negative campaign. I mean, they tried a positive approach, the wonders of Bidenomics and so on, and it fell flat completely. And all they can do is complain that the public isn't appreciating all that Biden did for them. So they don't really have a positive message here. So I think instead of a positive message, they're going to once again fall back on the negative, which is to focus on how bad the Republicans are. And they're seeing this, I think, somewhat short-sightedly, as I said, as an opportunity to further demonize the Republican Party as not only the party of Trump, but the party of chaos that cannot do the people's business properly. And that's certainly how they're going to portray it. And I think, as Dwight McGee noted, they could have thrown McCarthy a lifeline and made some sort of deal with him and gained some concessions on substantive issues. But they clearly made a decision not to do that on the idea that they would much rather, promote the chaos in the Republican Party, and by implication, the chaos in the Congress, as a means of generating what they would see as a winning campaign issue. Now, whether it's going to be a winning campaign issue or not, I think is very debatable because, again, the issue of Ukraine, I think, may trump that in the end. And the Democratic failures, the Biden administration's failures in Ukraine could eventually become the overriding issue here. I suspect it will over time. And nevertheless, I think the Democrats made a gamble that they would contribute to the sinking of McCarthy by not offering him this lifeline, to give them some kind of an issue to substitute for a positive issue, because they have no positive issue at this point in time.
Well, I mean, where do we go from here? What do you see playing out? I mean, because now they have to find a candidate and run him or her to be the speaker, and that's going to put us, basically a month away from another trying to avert a government shutdown with Ukraine on the table. You see the White House pushing for Ukraine. You see the Democrats pushing for Ukraine. You see this neoliberal establishment pushing for Ukraine, but you see Americans saying, no, 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 no. It seems like that is the sticking point. The government almost shut down over Ukraine. That was the sticking point. That's what got this guy kicked out, I believe.
Well, I think that, that's right. I mean, again, Ukraine keeps coming up as an issue. And the issue now, of course, I have no idea what the result will be, who's going to be speaker. I mean, again, the most obvious one would be Scalise, but you noted the baggage he has. And I'll point out one more detail about his point, his boast about being David Duke without the baggage, is that the Republican Party is making a lot of inroads among people of color. I think I myself have been surprised at how far that's gone. Particularly among Hispanics, but also among African Americans, even to some degree.
Yes.
And I just wonder if they're going to basically rethink the issue of having somebody like Scalise as their leading figure in Congress. If their ambition is to make further inroads among people of color, that just seems like that would be a very negative strategy, morality aside, which is fairly obvious about nominating somebody with that kind of a background. So I don't really know who they're going to come up with as a speaker. I don't think they know at this point.
They could come up with him.
But there is. Yeah, I'm sorry.
They could definitely come up with him. See, Black people are socially conservative, so I get the tilt toward Republicans. I remember when the Republicans were trying to recruit Reverend when I was a little girl. But Reverend's pushback was, oh, absolutely. Because if you listen to him, they called him Booker T and Blue Jeans, which was not true, but because he was socially conservative. But what he would never absolve them of racial responsibility. he would call out racism. And that for them was the no-no. That was the red line you're not supposed to go across. He was talking about, wait a minute, not just equity, but equality. Dwight was there.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Gibbs, if it were me, I would come up with Tim Scott. I think you'd upset the whole apple cart if you came up with if Republicans come up with Tim Scott.
That would be smart.
Because then they'll look at people more liberal than they are. He's more conservative in many ways than they are. He speaks, very eloquently on the race-neutral question. And since a lot of black people, particularly black men, are already divided, it creates a momentum with them to say, hey, maybe this is a better alternative than the Democrats, because at least, they are more reflecting our values. And particularly if he's, anti-war, because there's a lot of black people who are upset that the resources that should be going to black America in their minds are going overseas.
Well, he's not anti-war.
And I think you flipped the whole. I think you flipped the whole apple. I think you flipped the whole apple card. They would if they could have put in Tim Scott. And that's what I talk about, a strategy. I think you need a strategy, and the Democrats have no strategy to me.
Oh, well, that's true. I think that, it often occurred to me, I'm sure the Republicans are openly thinking about Tim Scott probably as a vice president, precisely for the reasons you've said. It could be very effective in that role for the Republicans. I'm not saying I like him because I don't, honestly, but nevertheless, I mean, this is something that's probably going to be looked at very carefully by the Republicans. At the same time, they're still going to have problems with the fact that they do have this legacy of people like Scalise, and they can't just, airbrush away what he said about David Duke. And so I don't know how this is going to play out. Nevertheless, you do have this issue that the substantive issue of Ukraine, I suspect, is going to be, the Democrats want to pretend that's not a political issue. And it so obviously is a political issue, and increasingly will be seen that way. And I think they're sort of playing with fire by sticking to this point and having no debate about it internally.
Well,
and that's why I asked. Again, that's why I asked the congressmen, how much negotiation, how much give was on Ukraine. And it sounds to me that there's very little. And I think it can become the Vietnam for the Democrats that happened with Johnson and became, more of a albatross than they anticipate right now. Because I just don't see the country being comfortable with where we're going in that direction. But it seems that the Democrats are recalcitrant when it comes to that war.
Well, it's the rhetoric, it's the brainwashing, quite frankly, the propagandizing, that's when you say vote blue no matter who. That's what happens, because that's not logical. Everybody. That's propagandizing, and that's being propagandized, which is being brainwashed. That's why I don't subscribe to that kind of thinking. You have to think your way through every single vote. And so we are in a war. We don't know what the objectives are. Most of us don't know where Ukraine is. We don't know anything. We've just been told that, it's, a Democrat is leading it, therefore it must be good. No. Democrats led us into Vietnam, or they were leading the charge into Vietnam, and it was wrong. And it created all kind of chaos in the United States. I mean, come on, everybody. Let's start thinking.
To me, one of the telling issues, a telling event in the Democratic Party was when, I believe it was about a year ago, the Progressive Caucus, Congressman Priapil, if I'm not mistaken, was the leader of this, wrote a joint letter to the administration supporting in every detail the war effort, but at the same time urging some openness to negotiations should exist. And it was a very, I thought, almost harmless letter, but it was immediately denounced so ferociously that Priapil and the caucus repudiated the letter totally within 24 hours. They apologized for even writing it. And that was such an extraordinary statement from the Democratic Party that any kind of negotiation or any kind of debate about negotiation is forbidden. And also suggested one more thing, which I suspect a lot of intimidation is going on here internally, that you'd better march in lockstep with us, particularly on this issue, or else.
Absolutely.
And if you don't, there will be consequences. That's very disturbing. That's a very authoritarian atmosphere. That's not a good thing.
But the authoritarian atmosphere is out here in our conversation, Dr. Gibbs and Dwight McKee. We don't allow each other to speak. We cancel. I mean, I'm looking at the chat line. If I don't call the DNC today and have them send me some talking points, some people just very upset with me, although you all still listen, and I appreciate that. Why would you want me to give you talking points? First of all, every time Reverend Jackson ran for president, he had to run against the Democratic establishment. The Democrats did not support him. They treated us horribly. And yet we stayed in the party. Don't talk to me. The most profound insult, my mother refused to go on stage with him in 1984 at the end of the convention. At the end of the convention, all the candidates get on the stage with their wives and they wave and they smile. Ha, ha. My mother refused to go on that stage with my father. I've shared that with you before. And we had been so insulted. I was Dr. Gibbs and Dwight. I was standing in the Moscone Center in San Francisco, and I was almost tearful. But if I had shed a tear, my mother would have had a fit. My mother did not play that. My mother is a stoic. She said, you do not let these people see you sweat. But they had been so insulting to Reverend, to my father, that it was just hard for me to even put my arms around this. But I'm a kid. I'm like 20, 21, so I'm like, oh, okay. And they had been personally insulting. But my father kept on pushing through because he's trying to pull Black people and progressives through. So when they came to us, when you have the music playing, they're like, no, it's time for you to go on stage, Mrs. Jackson. My mother said, absolutely not. I refuse. And she sat down in the chair. And my father looked, he said, because he had to go on the stage. He had to. Number one, he had an excited base himself. And he could have broken up that party, which would have destroyed Black people and progressives for more than a generation, Dr. Gibbs and Dwight. You know that to be true. So he had to take the hits. Like Jackie Robinson had to take the hits. He died at 53. He looked like he was 103. That's what happens. So my father looked at Jesse, Johnny, and I, and he said, please do not make me go on the stage by myself, babies, please. And my parents never played, my father never played us against our mother, ever. He said, please don't let me. And he said it just like that. He said, don't make daddy go here by himself. Please don't do that. So I walked up there with him. I think Jesse, Johnny, and I did. I was trying to hold myself together and not cry because I knew the insult. And I understood and supported my mother. She said, I absolutely will not go on this stage. But my father had to do it. You want to talk to me about the Democrats? And yet we have been loyal. And we have put Black people in place, got you a Black president, and all of them have been disloyal to you and to us. They didn't deliver. What are you talking about? You need to have an insult level. You need to make people deliver for you. Before you get who you want, you need to get what you need. That is politics. We didn't know that going in, but we know it now. You need to have some red lines. If it is okay for you for Steve Scalise to admire a Klansman and say that he is just like him, then have him as your speaker. Shame on you. It's not okay for me, and I'm going to say it. It's insulting, and it's assaulting. The Klan has done nothing but kill us. Matt Gaetz invited a Holocaust denier to the 2018 State of the Union address. Is that okay with you? So you can attack me all
they
they can attack me all they want. I'm just simply saying to you, do you not have an insult level? Do you not have some red lines? And is there not a strategy? There are 7 million more people who are hungry in America than were last year. Does that not disturb you? It should. These people are trying to cut WIC, SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, everything. That ought to disturb you. But I got the neoliberal Democrats who won't fight. But they'll fight the progressives who are fighting for you. Oh, no, and I'm not supposed to fight back? Oh, no, darling. No, I don't do that. I'm going to keep on pushing. Dr. Gibbs, excuse me.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that the Republican Party does have these disturbing associations with people with, I guess, to put it in a delicate way, racially destructive, racist views. Let's just put it that way. It's part of their recent legacy, part of Nixon's, his Southern strategy. Really, that's one of the beginnings of this, was to try and take, the former Confederate states away from the Democrats by making subtle appeals to racism. And this is just accelerated over time. And sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not subtle at all, as, for example, with Steve Scalise's comments about David Duke. And, so this is, part of the dysfunctional democracy we're in. On the one hand, the Republicans really do have this very disturbing legacy, and it's not just in the past, but very much in the present. On the other hand, the Democrats have their own dysfunctions, as we've been discussing many times on this show. And, the result may very well be just a descent into kind of instability and chaos in the next election. That's where this all could be headed. I don't look forward to it.
And let me just say something. TJ, I hear you. You can disagree, but you're not going to use foul language here. That's unacceptable. And you need to apologize to Chappelle. If you disagree with her, you don't have to say BS. The appropriate language for that is called balderdash. That's the synonym for BS. But don't do that. We don't do that here. I will not allow that. I will rant, but I'm not going to curse anybody out. And you're not going. I will not have that here. That is not the spirit in which you've operated. That's not the spirit in which we operate. I will not have it. And it's not because it's Chappelle. I wouldn't let her do it to you. Stop it. We can disagree without being disagreeable. And part of the problem that we have right now is that we've got this cancel culture where we do not allow people to talk. That ought to be very, very disturbing to you. And we're forcing each other to do all kinds of things just in the name of groupthink. Is that what America's come to? Censorship? Y'all talk about book banning in Florida and all over the country, but we ban each other. You don't want me to talk to Robert Kennedy. Some of you didn't want me to talk to Cornel West. If I'm not sitting up here reading Democratic talking points, you get upset with me. Are you serious right now? Nowhere on the Democratic talking points do they mention poverty. Not one place. They don't talk about Lahaina. They don't talk about East Palestine, Ohio. Not in one Democratic talking point. They ain't talking about none of that. That ought to disturb you. You want to talk about some Democratic talking points? Why don't you get those from me? I'll use those. You give people $700 per family, and that's supposed to be okay. And you shovel tens of billions of dollars every week to Ukraine. That is not okay with me. And if the Republicans are going to fight it, I'll join them on that fight. On that fight. Politics makes strange bedfellows. I don't want any more Ukrainians to die. The estimates are that 500,000 of them have been killed. Why do you want to do that? You don't even know what the point is. So you can get mad with Putin. Get out of here. He's not your problem. Stop. Start thinking. Your problem is the misappropriation of your funds. You cannot get $10 billion into an urban center in America to get you some food and to end homelessness. but I can get $100 billion over to Ukraine. What? You ought to be insulted by that. You need to have an insult level because it is your money. It is your government. It is up for and by you. I don't understand it. Okay. Dr. Gibbs, you've been hearing me rant. I come by it honestly. If you knew my mother, because my father doesn't do this. My father is very, very calm all the time. But Dwight knows that my mother is like, what? She is always 1 second from being cranked. And I have that side of me too. I'm like, I'm looking at this. I'm like, this is so illogical and crazy. As they put Bernie Sanders out the race. He was the most exciting candidate. He was getting people registered to vote. They put him out the race. The Democratic establishment, did you want me to sign on to those talking points? Oh, no, darling, I will not do that. They were wrong to have done that. They won't let Robert Kennedy speak. Cornel West has to run in the People's Party and the Green Party because we don't have debates over here. That is authoritarian. It is fascist. It is wrong. It is supposed to be un-American, but sadly, it's becoming most American of all. And you're signing up. You're signing up for it. Either the persons or the trolls or whatever it is. Whoever you are who will not call in. You know, I have had a respectful platform. You know, even when you disagree with me, and especially when you do, you will be respected here. So the fact that you won't call in because you say, "Oh, I disagree with you," no. You don't want to call in because you don't want none of this. I am ready for you, and I am ready to be corrected by you if I am wrong. The only way we're going to get out of this, we're not going to bomb our way out of war. We're not going to censor our way into freedom. We have got to be able to talk to each other. We've got to agree without being disagreeable. You have to give people space. And you have to get comfortable hearing the uncomfortable ideas that people present to you. That's what freedom and liberty is about. So I'm seeing all these comments. Yeah, come on now. Get with the program. Well, you know, I've got at least I've got Dr. Gibbs giggling today. Like he's like this.
It's a familiar thing, obviously. The fact that basically we are in a culture here where you either, are lockstep with one side or lockstep with the other side. And I've seen it so many times that any kind of nuance or analysis or effort to acknowledge something different from both positions, this is really not tolerated. It's a very intolerant environment we're in right now. I've seen it myself so many times in discussion. I think one of the reasons you're seeing the rise of third-party candidates, Cornel West most prominently, very likely Robert Kennedy is going to run as an independent, is because the Democratic Party simply will not tolerate any open discussion. Now, this is not entirely a new thing. You've noted, the Reverend Jackson, your father, was treated somewhat the same way.
They shut him down after he won by 56% of the vote in a 6 or 7 person field. Suddenly, the machines in Wisconsin didn't work.
Yeah. That's right. It's not. I mean, and Bernie Sanders had the same thing.
Absolutely.
And there was a sort of vitriolic response to Bernie Sanders, and now you're seeing it even more so with Robert Kennedy. And so I think the Democratic Party really has to examine, rather than condemning these third-party candidates, they have to raise the question of why do we have them? And the answer is the Democratic Party is simply not open to discussion. It's not open to debate. It's not open to dissent. And that's part of the problem here, the internal structure of the party. And so, all you can do is go outside the party. If they don't have a debate in the party, you go outside the party to have that debate. And that's what's happening.
And it will continue to happen. And you just heard Congresswoman Ramirez say, we're going to have some kind of coalition government. That's what's going to happen. It shouldn't be just Democrats and Republicans anyway. You need to have some other parties. You need to have some other points of view. And where people agree, they agree. Where they disagree, and they coalesce and come up with the votes to come up with a sane policy. And so here we are. But you know, who knows? We might even get there, Dr. Gibbs and Dwight McKee, by default. Because I don't think that Cornel West's candidacy is inconsequential, and I don't think that Robert Kennedy's candidacy is inconsequential. I think they have got some votes out here, unless these people decide not to give them to them, and they can do that too. But there's some feeling about these people and what they stand for, because they speak truth and they resonate with us. I'm not saying you have to agree with anyone 100%, but they're closer to you than these mainstream candidates are. They are. They come from you. And you need to consider voting for them. That's all I'm going to say.
Santita, I'm probably going to have to check out right now, but it was really a pleasure being on with you and Dwight and all the other panelists. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Didn't expect it to come this way. I got a text from my brother just as I was going on the air. And I said, oh, okay, well, yeah, you can come on if you can. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. We always love being with you.
Okay, thank you both. Bye-bye.
Dwight McKee, your closing
All right,
thoughts?
take care. Well, again, I want to try to understand why this war is so unnegotiable and non-compromisable. Is there something behind the veil, I think, to me, that makes war that many folks say it is unwinnable, so non-negotiable. And when the winning becomes non-negotiable, there's something you ain't seeing in the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that this was a lost opportunity. I like to see the Democrats have a better strategy, a more long way to indulge in more consequential thinking. Unless again, there's something I'm not seeing, which also could be true.
Where do you see all this going? What do you think is going to happen next Tuesday when they go back? They've got to find a candidate. Do you think they'll have one?
Mm-hmm, yeah, and I think he'll be more extreme than McCarthy. And I think that I think it's going to be chaos. I think that it seems to me that the Democrats is welcoming the chaos, trying to ferment the chaos, and again for reasons. I think that they could be a winning strategy, but I'm not sure they're correct. And there's such a downside if that's their strategy, and it don't work because it literally can close down the government for quite a while. As a matter of fact, for a long time. I just would have liked to have seen them play this much differently than they played it. And I think that the extreme Republicans, believe it or not, is playing it well, that they got out of it what they wanted out of it, which was to run McCarthy out of it so they can get one of their own guys in. So I think that that whatever their strategy is, I think it may, if you don't have a counter strategy, I think that strategy is going to work. I always say the only thing to be the plan is a better plan. And I'm not sure the Democrats have one.
Well,
and as Forrest Gump says, that's all I got to say about that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Forrest. Because I mean, this is a whole lot. But you know what? I think it's got people. I think people are awake. You got Kaiser Permanente. They've got a 3-day strike. You got the UAW strike, which is expanding. It's Striketober. The American worker, they are waking up. The American worker is waking up. The workers are waking up. And I hope that we'll wake up and really make this country what it's supposed to be. Really. We have the power to do that. All of our money does not have to go to war. 62% of it does. That's not right. A $33 trillion debt? Who spent the money on what? Where did the money go? What is that? That would pay for every American to get a 4-year public university degree for 103 years. Why are there hungry people in the United States? Why are there unhoused, homeless people in the United States? Don't get mad with these migrants. They've exposed a problem that was already here. California's unaffordable for most people. They had a homeless problem before the migrants got here. Why don't we fight to house everybody? How about that? The monies that they're getting, why don't you give it to everybody? That's what helped people get through COVID. These checks. Gaddafi did that in Libya. When they saw that rich oil, the best oil on earth, aside from Venezuela, you know what they did? He said, okay, we're going to make sure that there is no poverty in this country. And he eliminated it. Anywhere you want to go to school in the world, we're going to send you. And we will pay for it. When you get married, you're going to get $50,000 so you can go on and get started. Now you have people, because we killed him and collapsed their government. Now you got slavery over there now. The blackest people are enslaved. They're on auction blocks. Are you for real? And we stole all their gold. You think we're going to get blessed doing that? Come on, y'all. That ain't going to happen. Whoo, Dwight, is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Nope. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. God bless you, everybody. It has been quite a show. Hadn't expected it to play out like this today. But Dwight, thank you for being patient. Like I said, I had not expected Congressman Jackson to join us today, but I'm glad that he did. I'm glad that Congresswoman Ramirez did. I'm glad they let us know, what they experienced yesterday and what they have been experiencing. She said it's been nothing but chaos since they've been there since January. She said the committee meetings, it's a mess. It's a mess. And it doesn't have to be. So I love you all, everybody. I love you. I love you. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow. It has been great. What'd you say? Have a cold Sprite on you today? D-Ray? Thank you, sweetie. Sending you so much love. Oh, Robert says shalom to everyone. Love you, Yvonne. Love all of you. Love all of you. Donnie D, God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Like and share the show, everybody. Like and share the show. I hope that you had a good time today. And I hope that I hope you walk away from this show today more informed than you were when you came in this morning. That's the goal. And let's be kind to each other. Let's be kind to each other. Disagree. Let's not be disagreeable. But even when you have a big fight, hug it out at the end. Let's live to fight another day with each other, for each other. The only way we're going to make it is together. Live together as brothers and sisters, die apart as fools. It's as old as the ages, and it is true. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow. And thank you, Michelle and Donnie D and Yvonne and everybody. I love you. God bless you. See you tomorrow, God willing, on the Santita Jackson Show.